The story kicks off with our main character getting super nervous and gulping. Then a blonde girl comes up to him and says she's also a huge manga fan, just like him. Meanwhile, a redhead wonders how the situation got to this point, and a brunette girl asks if he enjoyed it, but the guy just wanted to have a very quiet life. Then a blue-haired girl smiles at him, talking about what she's been interested in lately, but suddenly, everything changes in an instant, with a simple snap of the fingers. Out of nowhere, someone yells our prota's name, Kim Yoo-sung, and he's totally shocked. He wakes up from a huge dream and sees a heart monitor showing how his heart is beating. Then we see him lying in a hospital bed, covered in bandages. Not knowing where he is, a doctor asks if he remembers anything, but he just thinks he's a simple student. He remembers a fire at a lab where he tried really hard to save his important research. Seeing that he's in a hospital room, the guy is completely confused. Looking to the side, our boy's eyes go wide with a big surprise. He then sees his own reflection in a water pitcher that was next to his bed. Seeing a face that wasn't his, he vaguely remembers a really bad car accident. With that, he finally understands what happened and realizes he has possessed someone else's body. The original owner was named Kim Yoo-sung and was a Korean student living in Japan. Apparently, the boy had a car accident and was out cold for several days straight. He concludes that his old self was gone in the fire, and his soul entered the boy's body. Despite everything, the guy is pretty happy to have escaped his horrible college life. But he thinks it's better not to get too excited, because something could still go wrong. Arriving at his new home, the young man wonders how he'll get by in this different life. His new mother welcomes him warmly and asks him to go rest in his room for a bit. So he goes up to Yoo-sung's room, and his body seems to already know the way. Feeling a bit bad for invading someone's room, he enters as carefully as possible. As soon as he opens the door, our guy is completely shocked by what he finds. The sight he sees in that room is simply something he couldn't believe. He sees a giant poster of an anime girl hanging right on the wall. And it wasn't just one poster, but a bunch of them featuring many different female characters. That place was an otaku shrine, and he discovers that Yoo-sung was a huge fan. Unable to believe what he was seeing, our prota has no reaction at all. With that, he closes the door to that room as fast as he can and starts thinking. Then he falls to the floor, wondering if he'll be able to live as this Kim Yoo-sung. He's afraid the parents will notice if he acts differently since he doesn't understand any of it. Not knowing what to do, the guy looks to the side and notices a poster in a picture frame. Looking a little closer, he thinks the character on the poster looks like Yoo-sung. At that moment, the guy gets such a big scare that he ends up falling backward. Startled, he simply couldn't believe that it was a poster from a famous manga. Trying to calm down, he thinks that this can't be some kind of trap for him. To confirm, the guy looks at the bookshelf and sees manga of all possible types and genres. The guy picks up a manga with a cover that, in his opinion, is very embarrassing and weird. Thinking about it for a bit, the guy feels like he's seen a similar character before. He remembers a very famous manga called Scramble Love, with 10 million copies. It was a super classic romantic comedy that received a lot of praise at the time. However, the original work had a very controversial ending that left all the fans upset. The unexpected ending with the childhood friend sparked a huge fight on the internet. Thinking the story in the book might be similar, he decides to take a look. As he reads the manga, the guy gets more and more drawn into the story. After finishing the entire book, he's left with his mouth wide open at what he just read. The read was so good that he ended up spending the whole night reading nonstop. The next day, his mom asks him to take care of the orders for a little while at the restaurant. He responds in a kind of weird way, and his mom doesn't even notice the change in his attitude. With his apron on, he greets the customers who had just arrived. But as he looks at the restaurant door, he's surprised by who had just walked in. It was a blonde boy and a girl he felt he had seen somewhere before. The girl is super excited and says that today, she's the one paying for all his food. She calls him by the name Rujuji, and the guy seems very worried about the situation. Our prota repeats the name Raiji in shock, not even believing what he's seeing. Then he remembers that they are the characters from the manga Scramble Love that he read, and that guy right in front of him was Sakamoto Ryuji, who was the protagonist of the work. Seeing the two of them standing there in front of him, he realizes this isn't a normal possession. Shaking all over, he understands that he actually possessed a body inside a manga book. To better understand what happened, he decides to organize everything in his mind. He was a college guy who was gone in a fire and woke up in the body of Kim Yu-sung. And it turns out that Yu-sung is just some random side character in the manga called Scramble Love. The same work he spent the whole night reading to understand the body's former owner. The problem is, he had never read Scramble Love before and sees no advantage in this. Even though it's a book, the world seems very real, and nothing will go wrong if he doesn't get involved. So he decides that he just needs to not get involved with the protagonist, named Sakamoto Ryuji. This way, he'll be able to live a quiet life as a simple side character. After that, he got busy reading all the books to pass as Yu-sung. He enrolled in a school far away to avoid the prota and got a full scholarship. After enrolling, the guy also managed to join the student council. Even with all that, his possession didn't end, and he has to keep living this life. He thinks about how to prepare, but just studying isn't enough, and he has no money. With this, he comes to the conclusion that the best thing to do is to start working out for real. Time passes, and now our prota is in his second year of the famous high school. His first year flew by, and in these last few months, he ended up changing a lot. The young man started training very hard in a gym every day of the week. With a lot of effort and dedication, he achieved a very impressive and strong physique. All of this was done with a single goal in mind, which was to be able to protect himself from everything. After all, this is the world of a manga where very bizarre things can end up happening. He did all this to prepare himself in the best way for a future he doesn't know. He managed to get through the first year, and his plan is to continue in the same way. But little did he know that his plans were about to change in an unexpected way. The girl calling him is Yaguchi Maya, who happens to be the main heroine of this story, and the blonde guy with her is Sakamoto Ryuji, the original protagonist of this work. To his great dismay, our prota ended up in the same class as Sakamoto Ryuji. He gets upset because he chose a school far away precisely to avoid meeting the guy. Meanwhile, Ryuji complains that he had a bad feeling and that he lost his wallet. Hearing that the prota bumped into a girl, an alarm goes off in our Yu-sung's head. At that exact moment, the classroom door swings open for everyone to see. The teacher enters the room and asks all the students to take their seats. He is a man in a suit who asks for a moment of silence for the whole class to quiet down. He says he has a very important announcement to make, leaving the students curious. Then, the teacher announces to everyone that the class will be getting a transfer student. With that, a very beautiful girl with blonde hair enters the classroom. She is very pretty and seems to be a very lively person with a lot of energy to spare. All the students' jaws drop at the new student's incredible beauty. The teacher then asks the new girl to introduce herself to the rest of the class. The girl introduces herself as Kishimoto Rika and says she likes cats, sweets, and napping. Our prota already expected her to be in the same class as the main protagonist. On top of that, a heroine appears, just as if she were a transfer student. Even without having read the work, he knows that Rika was the most popular in a fan poll. Although she didn't win in the end, the teacher starts choosing a seat for the girl. He then points to the empty seat and says she will sit next to Sakamoto. The protagonist of the work doesn't seem to like the teacher's idea one bit. Then he remembers the very rough girl he met earlier that morning. At that moment, the transfer student also recognizes the guy and is shocked. Apparently, they bumped into each other, and she ended up calling him a pervert in the heat of the moment. The teacher smiles and says it's even better that the two of them already know each other. The girl goes to her seat, muttering about the very embarrassing situation she went through. She sits next to the blonde guy, who doesn't know what to do or what to say to her. Then the new student simply turns her face away and completely ignores the guy next to her. Seeing the young woman's reaction, the protagonist feels awkward about the whole situation. Without saying a word, she places the wallet he lost on the blonde guy's desk. While the guy thanks her, our prota thinks he'll have to watch this for 2 years. Time passes, and the day's class finally comes to its long-awaited end. A classmate approaches and asks to borrow Sung's manga magazine for a while. He says he can keep it since he wasn't planning any plot twists at school. Even without having read Scramble Love, he can still make some slight predictions, but he knows that things in a manga never go as you expect them to. That's why he always reads magazines to keep up with all possible plot patterns. Suddenly, Ruji approaches Rika and asks to talk with her for a bit. He says it's about what happened in the morning, and the girl is surprised by the request. The girl agrees to talk with him, but says it will only be for a minute. Seeing the two of them leaving, a classmate wonders if something is going on between them. With that, Sung says he also needs to go to the restroom to get out of there. As soon as he leaves the classroom, our guy starts following the protagonist couple through the school. He hides behind a wall so as not to be seen by other curious students. His very intimidating presence starts to attract the attention of everyone passing by. The other students get scared by the aura he was emitting in that place. Rumors about him being a killer or a yakuza start to spread among the students. He gets annoyed for being a trouble magnet, but notices his presence intimidates everyone. Not caring about the others, he decides to pick up the pace to see the event up close. For his predictions to come true, he needs to see everything and collect data. He knows that in school, there's only one place where a boy and a girl can talk, and this place was the only one he could think of for the two of them to be right now. It was the most cliché spot in all of anime, behind the school, of course. Arriving there, Ruji bows and apologizes in a very desperate way to the girl. Hiding, Sung analyzes the scene and calls it a silly apology trap. He can't believe the protagonist struck that embarrassing pose just to apologize. The girl stares at the guy without showing any reaction on her face. After a moment of silence, she can't hold it in and starts laughing very loudly. The young woman bursts out laughing at the scene, and Ruji has no idea what happened. She says he's more innocent than she thought, and smiles in a mischievous way. He asks if she wasn't mad, but Rika says it was an accident, and it's all good. Hiding, our prota hears the girl say she just wanted to see his face again, and so begins the interaction of Kishimoto Rika's bright personality with the guy. All of this was just her first meeting event with the main protagonist. Our prota observes everything from a distance and thinks this is a classic comedy opening. Suddenly, someone calls his name, and he turns around, startled, to see who it is. A girl with a fan asks what a future secretary of the council is doing there. She then accuses him of doing something shameful, like spying on the other girls. This is Saionji Kumiko, the head of the student council and a very classic villain. Despite her appearance, she's a tragic case who was forgotten in the original story. The black-haired girl approaches him with a very suspicious look on her face. To play it off, he breaks off a branch and says he was thinking of taking it to the council room. She remains silent for a moment, thinking his idea is a very strange thing. With a surprised look, the girl seems to have been convinced by the guy's excuse. With that, she extends her hand and ends up taking the branch he was holding. Sung watches her in silence, not understanding what she was doing with it. She says that since he chose it, she will place the branch in the meeting room for him. The guy thanks her, but in reality, he just wanted to tease her, and it ended up working out. She then asks what he's doing there, since the semester has barely even started. Kumiko says she wanted to have a meal with the council officers, and invited him. She calls for him to hurry to the cafeteria before all the seats are taken. He finds it strange because there's nothing in the cafeteria that would actually please her palate. She laughs and says he doesn't really know her, accusing him of underestimating her greatly. The girl boasts about understanding the food and culture of commoners without any problems, and she says she can eat commoner dishes without any issue. Our prota remembers her complaining about small portions and finds her impressive. He then informs her that the school cafeteria doesn't serve the dish she mentioned. The young woman is shocked and asks what they have then, and he says there's a similar dish. She gets thoughtful about the dish's name and says it sounds very wrong to her. Even though she's disgusted, she asks if she really has to eat that strange dish. Sung teases her, asking if she wasn't just bragging about being different from others. At that moment, a guy with glasses appears out of nowhere and calls her by the name Melody. He turns to our Prota and asks if he is really the so-called Kim Yu-sung. The guy with glasses understands the situation and adjusts his glasses with a very serious look. He yells at Yu-sung, asking if he knows he's part of the student council. The guy continues, saying that his lady skipped her meal just to look for him. Our Prota gets confused and wonders why she would skip her meal just for him. The girl gets all embarrassed and denies, saying she was sad about all that. The vice president says he will no longer tolerate his insolence towards his lady. He declares himself prepared to risk his life for her and pulls her forcefully by the arm. As she's dragged away, she says they'll postpone the meal and that he should take care. Our Prota stands there, not understanding anything that just happened right in front of him. The day passes, and the classes finally come to an end for all the students at that school. After school at the subway station, our Prota grabs everyone's attention. Today was the day of the protagonist's big event and the beginning of Scramble Love. Thanks to his training, everyone in his class avoids him as if he were a plague. He's happy he trained and realizes that size really does matter a lot. Looking at the board, he sees there are still 10 minutes until the next train. With that, he goes to a vending machine and gets a can of juice to drink. He thinks that the protagonists have already crossed paths, and the story will follow its course. As he's thinking that everything is going according to plan, someone touches his shoulder. He turns to see who it is, and is surprised by the person who called him out of the blue. It was Rika, the transfer student, who recognized him and introduced herself to him again. Not understanding anything, our Proto is shocked and wonders why she is there. The girl says she was worried but is happy to have found him so soon. She calls him and asks if he knows how to get to a certain address in the city. Our Proto wonders how she knows his name since they've never spoken before. Then he realizes his name is written on a tag on his school uniform. With a smile, the young woman points to the tag and cheerfully calls him Kim Kun. He feels like an idiot for completely forgetting about the name tag. The girl can't hold back her laughter upon seeing the guy's funny reaction. She then says he's a nice guy and that she was right about him all along. Our Prota is confused by the girl's sudden compliment, not knowing what to say. He wonders what she's talking about and why she thinks he's such a good person. He questions how she could know anything about him, since they barely know each other. Rika says he was giving off a strange energy in the classroom earlier, and that she heard rumors about him fighting a gang of 50 men. She says that now she sees him treating the class queen so casually and calmly. Our Prota is shocked to realize she has already drawn conclusions about him. He thinks he made a huge mistake by getting involved with one of the heroines of the work. He wonders what to do, since she was kind enough to approach him. Rika calls his name again, pulling him out of his deep thoughts on the matter. She complains that he didn't even respond to her compliment, and he quickly apologizes. Not knowing what to say, he just thanks her for the compliment she gave him. The girl smiles, satisfied with the response he gave to her compliment. He says the rest of the class might misunderstand him, but one day they'll see him for who he is. He advises her to think of the crazy stories as part of a normal life's plot. With a radiant smile, she says she'll be his friend until everyone understands him. Our Prota remains silent, not knowing how to react to her declaration of friendship. He realizes that scaring her off wouldn't work, and that he'd have to play along for now. Even so, he decides that his act as a common side character must continue as before. The girl celebrates that her plan worked and that he can delude himself all he wants. She then remembers what she wanted to ask and shows an address to the guy. Rika says it's her new address, but the subway lines are confusing for her. He recognizes the address as a rich neighborhood and wonders if she's also rich. He says the place is near his house and that they'll take the same train to go there. Rika gets excited to hear that he lives near her, and that asking was the right decision. She asks where he lives, and he says it's just 2 stations away. The girl is surprised by the proximity and says it seems like fate. He realizes the situation is getting complicated and that he needs to think of something. He prepared himself to survive, but never read the original story of Scramble Love. No matter how much he studies the patterns, Rika's information is more accurate than his. The best move is to become her friend and get information to give advice. He thinks that a small change in the plot shouldn't affect the main storyline too much. With a new plan in mind, he offers to buy the girl a drink. He says it's a thank you for being his friend, and she asks for a soda from him. The girl takes the can of soda and opens it with a very refreshing sound to drink. She drinks it heartily and says there's nothing better than a good cold soda. He asks if she really likes soda, and she says not that much. Rika explains that she was on a diet and hadn't had soda for a long time. He's surprised to learn she was on a diet, and she shows an old photo. She says she used to be a model for a fashion magazine and always needs to take care of her body. He comments that she looks different in the photos, and she denies it's makeup on the spot. The train arrives, and he changes the subject to avoid the girl's wrath at that moment. The train departs from the station at high speed, taking all the passengers with it. On the train, some people comment on our prota's intimidating appearance. Others complain about how they can't travel in peace with guys like him around. Rika jokes that thanks to him, she found a shortcut to not being bothered. He takes out the subway map and says he'll help her find her way home. With that, he starts guiding the girl through the station, but she gets lost easily. When the train arrives, he says goodbye and prepares to get off at his station. He tells her that her station is 2 stops later and says goodbye, thanking her for everything. Before he can leave, Rika calls him back to say a proper goodbye. She waves and says she'll be counting on him tomorrow, too. As the doors close, he stands on the platform, wondering why she would count on him like that. He wonders why, of all people, she chose to get close to him specifically. The next day at lunchtime, some students call their friends to the cafeteria. Sung remembers he forgot his lunch at home and doesn't know what to do. He then opens a box of kimbap that his mother specially prepared for him. Using chopsticks, he picks up a piece of kimbap and prepares to eat alone. As he's about to eat, someone suddenly calls his name in the room. He turns and sees Rika standing in front of him with a lunchbox in her hands to eat. She asks with a pitiful face if he was eating alone every day. He explains that eating in the classroom makes others uncomfortable and that it's easier. He says it's easier for him and that the others need time to get used to it. Rika's face turns red, and she says that even so, it doesn't seem like he's alone. She seems to have gotten an idea while looking at the lunchbox he's holding. The girl carefully observes the kimbap he's eating at that moment. She asks if that's kimbap and says it's the first time she's seen it up close like this. He agrees, and she watches him with eyes sparkling with curiosity about the food. With a smile, she asks if she can try one, and he's surprised by the request. Rika gets annoyed with his reaction and says it's not because of the kimbap itself. He gets along with her because the girl is more cheerful than he expected her to be. She picks up a piece of kimbap with her chopsticks and brings it to her mouth to try. With sparkling eyes, she says it's very good and asks about the restaurant. He thanks her and says he'll tell his mom that she really liked the food. Rika then offers one of her rolled omelets in exchange for a piece of kimbap. He accepts the trade and takes a piece of the omelet she offered for him to eat. With his chopsticks, he brings the omelet to his mouth and tastes it very carefully. As soon as he tastes the omelet, he is shocked by the taste he feels in his mouth. He remembers someone saying that half of life is sugar, and the omelet is proof. He asks how much sugar she put in, and she says just what she felt was right. With a serious expression, he says she really likes sugar and that sweets are bad for you. He says that next time he'll show her a Korean style omelette without sugar. She calls him weird and says, everyone has their own different tastes in life. As they argue about the omelette, something outside catches their attention. They see the student council president and her vice president standing in the school parking lot. The president seems to be drinking something from a very strange silver tube. Rika turns into a curious cat upon seeing the scene unfold before her. The blindfolded president says that improper relations are forbidden. With a furious expression, she declares that as president, she cannot allow this. Yu Sung is confused and wonders what she means by improper relation. She says that a boy and a girl eating together in a deserted corner is suspicious. The vice president approaches and accuses him of making excuses after being caught. Calmly, our prota states there's nothing wrong and finds it strange that they keep bumping into each other. The blonde girl agrees while eating, saying that running into each other at lunch is too much of a coincidence. All flustered and hiding her face, the president asks if the guy has anything to say. Suddenly, the little blonde girl recognizes her and points her finger, calling her the gloomy president. Hearing this bizarre nickname, the dark-haired girl is shocked and speechless. The new friend explains with a smile that she heard rumors about the girl wearing a black uniform. This makes the counselor furious, stating that the outfit is meant to project dignity. But the heroine retorts that everyone calls the outfit cosplay, making the brunette sad. Trembling with frustration, the president mutters about the students making fun of her with Rika. Seeing the classmates' dramatic reaction, the student backs away a little, confused by the scene. Pointing her fan, the brunette warns that she'll let it slide, but promises she'll be back. After that, the girl runs off, crying in embarrassment, while her vice president catches up to her. Watching this comical escape, the big guy and his friend stand there processing it. The girl quietly asks what she did wrong, and the guy sighs, having no idea. Soon, time passes, and the school bell finally rings, announcing the end of classes. In the classroom, we see the protagonist sitting alone at his desk, deep in thought. Suddenly, a very cheerful voice calls his name, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was the young blonde girl who approaches with a radiant smile, asking why he didn't go. She notices a guide on his desk, and the guy explains he wants to join a club. Very excited, the heroine suggests they take a walk around the school to try them out. After some thought, our prota concludes that visiting in person is much better. With that, he agrees to the idea and stands up, making the girl ask where they would go. Surprising the young woman, the dark-haired guy says he plans to see all the clubs. Making a scary face and exuding a strong purple aura, he explains the reason. Cracking his knuckles, he says he's curious to find out just how far his strength can take him. So the first stop for this dynamic duo ends up being the soccer club's field. Arriving at the location, they soon witness a student kicking the ball with a lot of gusto. However, the player's aim is far from good, and the ball flies far from the goal. Then we see two troublemaker-looking students complaining about missing their shots. Acting like bullies, the two start yelling and picking a fight with the members. Full of swagger, one of the jerks gets in position and says he'll show them how to kick. But before he could do anything, a firm voice interrupts them, making both of them break into a cold sweat. The one approaching is a tall guy wearing the number 10 shirt, and the duo recognizes him instantly. With a super serious and intimidating look, the leader asks the jerks to get off the field. The troublemakers tremble in fear, remembering that he is the legendary third-year captain. Without a second thought, the guys change their attitude and run off, apologizing. With the bullies gone, one of the boys sighs in relief and thanks him for the help. The leader then asks about this year's freshman, but the member says he hasn't seen any talent. Sighing deeply, the captain states that this is a big problem because they need to win. Looking at the sky, he wishes to find a monster freshman to change their fate. Meanwhile, the two guys who are kicked out walk through the hallways, furious for being humiliated. The shaved head guy suggests going back and beating them up, but his partner refuses out of fear. Scared, the blue-haired guy remembers that the captain's kicks are dangerous, but the blonde ignores the warning, saying fights depend on experience, and bumps into someone. Furious for being interrupted, the troublemaker turns around, cursing the person without looking. However, when he looks up, he comes face to face with our big guy, who is looking down on him. With a cold and piercing gaze, the protagonist asks the delinquent to repeat the insults. Upon recognizing that face, the pair of bullies feel their souls leaving their bodies. Yelling that he's the famous leader of the Mad Dogs, the two run off. Seeing the guys fleeing as if they'd seen a monster, our prota and the blonde girl are confused. The other students comment in shock that the big guy scared off the bullies with just a look. The blonde girl scolds him for picking a fight, but he defends himself, saying he just looked at the guys. She sighs, stating that even his look is a problem, and the guy agrees. At that moment, we see one of the team members stopping soccer balls on the field. Hearing a strange noise, the player turns around curiously, holding the ball to see. With that, our prota enters the field accompanied by his friend, while everyone panics. Seeing the scene, the troublemakers from before despair, thinking he came for revenge. Suddenly, a hand touches the shoulder of one of the players, who was paralyzed with fear. It was the team captain, telling his teammate to relax, as he doubted it was anything bad. Sweating profusely, the boy says the big guy has a bad reputation and would never want to join the club. The leader comments that he heard horrible rumors about the young man, but now it made sense. Staring seriously at the guy, he deduces that with that physique, the newcomer was planning something bigger. Then the intimidating boy stomps firmly on the ground, stopping in front of the person in charge of the club. The number 10 recognizes him immediately by name and says he's already heard of him. Crossing his arms, the leader introduces himself and then asks what brings a famous figure there. Our prota calmly replies that he wants to try out for the team. The player gets tense upon noticing that the newcomer is very tall, making him feel like a dwarf. Furthermore, he observes the guy's defined muscles, noting that he has a strong physique. With this, the captain imagines that if that monster joins the team, winning would be easy. Looking deep into the newcomer's eyes, the leader makes his decision and wishes to have the boy on the team. The big guy finds the stare down strange, making the upperclassmen apologize and explain the tryout. Next, a ball is carefully placed on the penalty spot on the dirt field. The rule is simple, and he just needs to kick it with all his strength into the empty goal. Taking a deep breath, the young man reflects on the instruction to use all his enormous strength. A strong purple aura covers his body, and he decides to give it his all in this opportunity. At that moment, he focuses all his absurd energy into his legs, assuming the posture. With a completely focused and scary look, the big guy channels 300 kilograms of force. He then spins his body with incredible speed, hitting the ball with a powerful kick. The impact is so violent that the ball is crushed at the exact moment of the strike. A true explosion of purple energy occurs, kicking up dust everywhere. Seeing that insane display of power, all the club members are astonished, completely in shock. The captain mutters that the kick was so fast he didn't even see the ball. However, when they look towards the goal, they realize the net is still empty with nothing in it. Trembling with pure terror, the team leader wonders what kind of sorcery just happened. The big guy stands there, staring at the completely burst ball, while the upperclassman understands. Sighing, the protagonist deduces that joining the team isn't going to happen and calls the blonde girl. The girl says that the basketball club is nearby, and the two of them walk off. Through the school hallways, students start spreading gossip about him. Some students rush to see the show, and the student council president overhears. Holding her wooden sword, the brunette smiles, thinking the guy has started to make his move. Arriving at the basketball court, our young man manages to shatter the entire backboard with a dunk. The chaos continues in baseball, where he shatters the bat, and in tennis, he tears the net. The tennis players look terrified at the huge crater that formed on the court floor. With that, the excited little blonde girl crosses off and marks a heart on the clubs. The heroine celebrates the winning streak, while the big guy looks bored. He then turns to the girl, calmly asking how many clubs were still left. At that moment, the student puts on a very mischievous expression, grabbing her notebook. Acting like a true I'm nerd, she pulls out a pair of glasses, pointing to the sky. Putting on the accessory, the young woman boasts that she will answer using the data. Staring at that whole bizarre performance, the protagonist is completely confused. Ignoring 3 options without tryouts, the remaining choices were track and field, kendo, and swimming. Analyzing the choices, the young woman explains that the track and field club improves stamina. As for swimming, it was known at school for helping with endurance and training muscles. And finally, they had the option of kendo, which served to teach discipline and strengthen. With the serious face of a researcher, the little blonde girl concludes her explanation, adjusting her glasses. She takes off the accessory very proud, asking if the explanation wasn't great. Happy with the answer, she offers to be the big guy's guide again on the way. Curious, the protagonist suddenly asks if the heroine has ever worked in acting. At this, she gets all embarrassed by his surprise question, not understanding why. Fiddling with her own hair, Rika looks away shyly, confessing that she doesn't talk about it. Red as a beet, the student quietly reveals that she used to act in the past. Our prota's eyes widen in complete shock upon finally hearing the truth. Breaking into a cold sweat, he looks at that girl, realizing that this information could ruin everything. To avoid straying from the manga's original plot, the boy deduces he shouldn't have asked. Suddenly, the student grabs his arm, pulling him with all her strength to the side. Having overcome the embarrassment, the heroine smiles again, remembering the 3 clubs. Following the girl in silence, the guy gives up on investigating her past for the moment. He then chooses to start with the kendo club, making his classmates smile and accompany him. At the dojo door, several students were whispering strange things, very impressed. One of the members stopped scrolling on his phone, completely surprised by some news. With his eyes wide in shock, he quickly tells everyone that the big guy has arrived. The little blonde girl and our protagonist appear in the hallway, making the atmosphere heavy. A girl tries to interview him, but all her journalism colleagues back away. Taking the lead, the anime nerd with cat ears pushes the microphone away from him. At that moment, the large double doors of the club are finally opened, making a noise. The newcomer enters with his chest puffed out, letting out a long sigh, already expecting the worst. Some students comment in low voices how the other teams survived the monster. But then something surprising appears in the boy's vision, stealing all his attention. In a combat stance was none other than the 3rd-year captain, ready to fight. The upperclassmen go crazy seeing that the tied-haired leader showed no fear. Sighing with exhaustion, the big guy says he doesn't want trouble and just wants to hear the rules. Even so, the brunette just smirks challengingly, loving his style. Pointing her wooden sword, she states that whoever gets the first strike wins. Holding the weapon on her shoulders, the captain seriously invites him onto the court. The students start shouting and cheering, super excited to see the fight up close. Several of them take out their phones, trying to record the monster finally getting beaten by someone. Sweating nervously, our prota mutters, scared that they think he's a final boss. At this, the brunette orders all the surrounding students to be quiet using her voice. With a single shout, she manages to scare everyone in the hallway into silence. Keeping a serious face, the upperclassman reinforces that this fight will be only between the 2 of them. Directing her fury at the crowd, she says she will crush anyone who interferes. Without a second thought, the spectators decide to just shut up and watch. Realizing the dark-haired girl's full power, the duo agrees on her level. Carefully analyzing the opponent, the big guy notices the blonde girl realized the rival's strength. Emanating a huge, dark pressure in the form of a snake, the warrior shows her power. Sighing, our prota asks Rika to wait outside so she doesn't get in trouble. With that, he calmly enters the dojo, where the sun perfectly illuminated the environment. Firmly on the ground, the fighter tells him to start whenever he wants and suggests he gear up. But our prota assures her that nothing there would fit his size, and the girl does the same. Finding the upperclassman's whole attitude noble, he picks up the wooden sword, stating something. Holding her wooden sword, the girl laughs at his words, finding the idea funny. With a sharp gaze, she warns that he won't even touch her uniform and gives the command. At this, the boy kicks the weapon rack, sending several swords flying. Grabbing a weapon in mid-air, the big guy quickly defends against a surprise attack from the upperclassmen. The two begin to exchange several quick blows, and the girl compliments his skills. But advancing with full force, she states that his strength means nothing against her. Seeing his rival approach, the protagonist prepares a strong counter attack with the sword. Then the two clash in the center of the court, creating a large gust of wind. At that exact moment, the young warrior's eyes gleam, showing that she was serious. With that, the girl's wooden weapon begins to glow, covered by a powerful energy. Using this mysterious force, she manages to repel the big guy's attack and disarms him. Completely surprised by that turn of events, the dark-haired guy is left speechless. Laughing victoriously, the brunette calls him a fool for not breaking her magical defense. And without wasting time, the captain quickly advances against her disarmed opponent in the end. But keeping his cool, the protagonist just raises his hand and grabs his weapon from above. Showing a terrifying smile and a purple aura, the young man shows that the fun has begun. Upon seeing that scene, the upperclassman's eyes widen in complete shock and terror. With a single heavy movement, the big guy attacks with all his might, forcing the girl to retreat. Trembling under the weight of that absurd attack, the leader wonders what that pressure was. Staring at the girl from a distance, he realizes he almost lost and reflects on the movements. Frightened, the brunette admits to underestimating the guy, noting that a long fight would be bad. Then a huge spiritual snake appears behind her, showing that she was going all out. Advancing with blood in her eyes, she uses a secret technique from her clan for the finale. As the deadly attack rapidly approaches, the big guy remains still and calm. A huge explosion of light occurs as the captain's sword hits the young man's chest. Even after taking a direct hit, our protagonist remains standing, feeling the impact. Completely perplexed, the warrior wonders how someone withstood her attack, but soon she cracks a confident smile, stating that the guy was already defeated. However, the happiness is short-lived as she realizes something was very wrong. To her total despair, the girl's wooden weapon simply shatters, and with the shock, the captain is thrown backward, feeling a powerful killing aura. Completely losing her balance, the brunette falls hard to the ground, utterly defeated. Looking at the destroyed hilt in her hand, she doesn't understand what happened and is confused. Raising her head, she turns completely red, sweating coldly as she understands what broke. The guy reveals that he used only the pure strength of his muscles to destroy the weapon. The next morning, the classroom is in chaos, with several students gossiping about everything. They comment in terror that the kendo club suffered the most at the hospital. Sitting at his desk, the boy just listens to people whispering that he wants to take over. Sweating nervously, the protagonist realizes that those rumors were getting out of control. Looking at the main blonde guy, he notices that the guy is acting normally to follow the story. Finding this great, he decides to just ignore the protagonists until his blonde friend arrives. However, the piece is very short-lived as the classroom door is violently thrown open. A short, red-haired girl enters, furiously shouting the protagonist's name. With a very angry look, she tells the blonde guy to get out of where he was and come to her. The other students are confused by the invasion and soon recognize her as being from the swordsmanship club. Completely confused by the scene, the blonde guy asks who she was and what she wanted. Angrily, the little redhead accuses him of hitting her freshman and states that they told her everything. The blonde guy tries to defend himself, saying it's a misunderstanding, while our big guy watches. At this, a girl with a headband steps in front of the blonde guy, ready to defend her friend. Staring at the redhead, she accuses her back, stating that her newcomers were the ones to blame. The little redhead explains that some students from the club dragged her into an alley, and the blonde guy saved her. Hearing the whole story, the girl with the headband accuses the kendo newcomers of being guilty, crossing her arms, The defender tells her rival to straighten out her freshman, and the redhead is flustered. With a firm look, she reaffirms that the blame for this whole mess was not the protagonist's. At that exact moment, the short girl lifts her face, with a very intense expression, pointing her finger in the guy's face. The club leader shouts, demanding that he be her boyfriend. The young man is completely frozen and speechless upon hearing that declaration of love. As for the girl with the headband, she is paralyzed with shock, her eyes wide in disbelief. The bold girl holds the blonde guy's arm tightly while our big guy watches. Desperate, the hero's friend screams at the top of her lungs, completely denying that request. Watching from a distance, the protagonist reflects on how brutal the world of comedies is. Beside him, his blonde classmate lets out a squeal of excitement, her eyes sparkling with hearts. Smiling very excitedly, the redhead compliments the girl with the headband, saying she finds her amazing. Meanwhile, the other students gossip, wondering which girl the blonde guy will choose. One of the classmates bets on the hero's childhood friend, praising her sweet nature. But another disagrees, preferring the little redhead who is fierce, but a sweetheart to those she loves. Sitting at his desk, our prota realizes that the gossip about the declaration isn't over yet. He thinks the girl was very brave to declare herself in front of everyone. Suddenly, the little blonde girl calls him, making the big guy turn to her, a bit confused. With a mischievous smile, she asks which of the two girls her friend thinks he will date. The dark-haired guy looks away and replies that he has no idea how it will end. But in his thoughts, he knows that in the original manga, the blonde guy would end up with his friend. But the girl surprises her friend by stating that she actually knows who the hero ends up with. Winking, she reveals that in the manga, the protagonist ends up with the red-haired girl, and all excited, she explains that this will only happen if she herself gives advice to the redhead. The big guy questions his classmate's confidence, but she boasts about being the best counselor. She exaggerates, claiming that people line up to hear her advice, but it's a lie. With clenched fists, the blonde girl gets super excited, and the guy doesn't understand her enthusiasm. Making a cute face, the student asks her classmate to pay more attention to her. A while later at school, the atmosphere of gossip about the new couple was still in the air. Then our protagonist arrives in the classroom, opening the door for another day. But upon entering the room, he is a bit surprised by a totally unexpected scene. The red-haired girl was sitting with her arms crossed on top of one of the desks. A classmate approaches and asks the big guy why the little redhead was in their classroom. The friend gossips that she's trying to convince the hero to go out for lunch with her. He whispers that this lunch was actually just an excuse for a date with the blonde guy. At this, he reveals a rumor that the girl was the daughter of someone important and very famous. The rumor said that the redhead was the daughter of the head of an organization called Dronzer Recap. He explains that this organization is one of the largest Yakuza groups that dominate the region. The protagonist reacts with indifference, and the classmate notices he didn't seem surprised. He then says that even if it's true, it wouldn't actually change anything in their lives. The friend is impressed by his calmness, but the dark-haired guy makes a sour face. Reflecting on the situation, the big guy remembers that they are already inside a manga. With this, he thinks that the story of the Yakuza's daughter at school could be very real. The redhead yells at the blonde guy, insisting that he accept the apology with her. But the childhood friend steps in front, telling the girl to stop, because he was feeling down. Very angrily, the little redhead replies that the matter is none of her business, so she shouldn't interfere. Meanwhile, some side characters are crying, wishing that girls liked them too. After that, the girl's pursuit continued for several days without letting up. She even shamelessly invaded the men's locker room to find her target. And in the hallway, the young woman corners him once again, shouting that he will eat with her. Totally desperate and with no way out, the blonde protagonist just cries and begs. In the cafeteria, the little blonde girl asks the big guy what his plans are for the holiday. He replies that he won't be doing much, probably just helping out at the restaurant. Then the girl invites him to her house if he has free time, leaving the guy. She explains the invitation by saying she has a lot of manga at home, and he asks how many. The young woman boasts that her father has a manga collection that could fill a bookstore. Super excited by the idea, the guy promises he will call her as soon as he has time. But suddenly, the big guy notices something strange while the two of them continue talking. He notices that the blonde student seems to be thinking about something while she eats. He comments that she's very thin for someone who eats so much, and the girl says it's normal. The classmate explains that if she doesn't eat a proper lunch, she ends up eating junk food and doesn't gain weight. With a proud smile, she reveals that all the food she eats goes to her chest. Completely in shock, the dark-haired guy is speechless upon hearing the revelation. She then calls him a creep for looking, and the big guy realizes it was a trap. From a distance, another girl approaches their table while the blonde continues laughing. But suddenly, the blonde student's eyes go wide in complete shock at something. Woon invited, the red-haired girl sits at their table, leaving the duo. Seeing a great opportunity, the blonde girl stands up, all excited, while her friend doesn't understand. With a smile on her face, she turns to the newcomer and asks if her name is Tojo Karen. The redhead then asks who she is, and the young woman confidently introduces herself as Kishimoto Rika. She offers to help the newcomer, who is shocked to finally recognize the name. The little redhead turns all red and flustered as the little blonde girl approaches to ask. Stuttering, she reveals that she had heard about the upperclassman's fame as a love counselor. She then explains that it was obvious, because the redhead is always in their classroom, just looking for him. Embarrassed, the red-haired girl covers the blonde's mouth, telling her to shut up. Even with her mouth covered, the student says the timing is perfect because she wanted to talk to her. At this, the little redhead gets all embarrassed hearing that her classmate wanted to give her advice. Later, the big guy walks home, thinking about how much fun his blonde friend was having. He remembers the girl excitedly setting up a meeting with the redhead for the next day. In the original story, it would be a love rivalry, but he feels the excitement is strange. He then decides to stop thinking about it and focus on his training at the gym. Upon entering the place, he is confused by the noise and the shouts of several gym bros. The guy wonders why the place was so noisy and notices a girl in the back. With a smile on his face, he thinks it's a great coincidence to run into that person. To his surprise, the girl was none other than the captain of the kendo club he defeated. He approaches and confirms if she is indeed Fuma Yukika, the third-year upperclassman. The young woman explains that the club doesn't provide enough exercise, and she didn't know he trained. At this, he notices that all the men in the gym suddenly got super excited. He understands the guy's reaction because the girl was really very pretty in her workout gear. The big guy asks if she lives nearby, and the blue-haired girl reveals that she moved. Upon hearing the news, the protagonist cracks a smile and says that's great news. Suddenly, the gym owner appears and tells the guy to teach the girl how to train. He says it would be more comfortable for the two young people from the same school to train together. The old man whispers that the young lady seems to have feelings for him and tells the young man to go. Awkwardly, the big guy calls her over to take a look around, thinking the owner was wrong. Then, the trio approaches one of the weightlifting machines to train. The owner suggests starting with 220 kilograms, and the girl is startled by so much weight. He guarantees that he's never seen a monster like that guy in over 20 years there. Without difficulty, the young man grabs the iron bar with all his strength to lift it. His leg muscles contract, showing all the absurd strength he was about to use. Beside him, the gym owner just watches with a proud and satisfied smile. With a single movement, the big guy manages to lift the 220 kilograms without breaking a sweat. Seeing that scene, the blue-haired girl's jaw drops at his strength. The old man says that was light and decides to increase the weight to 270. The guy lifts the new weight for 5 complete sets, leaving the two of them impressed. The owner boasts that he warned them about the monster's strength, and the girl thinks it's an exaggeration but she admits that his physique is not normal and calls him a monster in her thoughts. She deduces that the guy can only have the legendary supreme young physique she's heard about. This rare power refers to a constitution born with the energy of 100 men. One theory says that famous heroes from history and mythology also possessed this. She is sure of this because she has already fought him and knows that his strength is not normal. With this, the warrior decides she needs to report this discovery to that person. The next day, the trio meets in front of a huge and luxurious Japanese house. The three of them enter together and are greeted by several men who welcome the young woman. The big guy wonders if her family is really from the Yakuza and why the blonde girl isn't surprised. He realizes that because he was reincarnated, he still hasn't gotten used to the bizarre events. One of the men stares at him, frightened, wondering who that giant with a dark aura was. Suddenly, he accuses him of being a spy from another group and tells the young woman to protect herself. The redhead gets annoyed and tells him not to be rude, because they came to help. The dark-haired guy remains silent, completely confused because he hadn't done anything. Later, one of the men apologizes for his subordinate's behavior towards him. The young man says it's okay and that he's already used to misunderstandings due to his appearance. However, he refuses to help, saying he wouldn't be of much help for a problem. But the little blonde girl scolds him, stating that a man's opinion is the most important. With a confident smile, she calls herself a love expert, and her friend, all excited, the blonde student shouts that they are going to start the cooking class. After a few hours of intense work in the kitchen, the girl's lunchbox is ready. With her eyes shining with happiness, the redhead proudly holds up the food. She celebrates that this is the first lunchbox she's ever made, and her classmate congratulates her. But a little earlier, the big guy had to warn her to be careful with the fire. The guy remembers the completely burnt chicken and thinks it looked like food from the underworld. Hungry, he offers to prepare something quick for the two girls' dinner. With a determined smile, the young man tells them to leave dinner to him. He then starts cooking with incredible skill in a pan over a flame. The two students are left with their mouths wide open, impressed by their classmates' speed. In a few minutes, the fried rice dish is ready, and the two of them praise its appearance. They taste the food and are amazed by the incredible flavor of the guy's dish. The blonde girl asks since when he knew how to cook so well, and he says he learned recently. He remembers his mom waking up at dawn to make his lunchbox, and he felt bad. The young man explains that he was clumsy at first, but gradually got better over time. He then asks who prepares his classmate's lunchbox, and she replies that it's her mom. Suddenly, the blonde girl remembers she had something to give to the distracted redhead. She hands her a gift and explains she bought various makeup products she could use. The young woman also wrote a note with basic care tips for her classmate. She then suggests starting by learning how to use makeup and then going shopping. The blonde girl comments that the redhead's style is a bit strange, making the girl a little tense. With a smile, she says her friend's style looks like an old man's, which irritates the girl. The redhead gives in and says that today, she will learn to do her makeup to get the date. Super excited, the blonde girl tells her friend to wait, while the two of them go do their makeup in the room. The guy asks if he'll have to wait alone, and she explains that it's a crime to see a girl. The blonde girl pulls the redhead into the room, leaving the big guy sitting alone, waiting for them. He remembers his friend said a man's opinion was important, but he was left behind. Later that night, the two of them head home, satisfied with the fun day. The guy says he hopes the redhead gets the date, and the blonde girl agrees excitedly. Suddenly, the protagonist stops walking, leaving his classmate a bit confused by the stop. He asks if she wouldn't mind stopping at the convenience store to buy a magazine. The dark-haired guy grabs one of the week's issues from the store shelf. The blonde girl asks if he buys it every week, and he confirms, saying her dad was right. He asks if his classmate doesn't also buy the magazine and if that makes her a good person. The young man agrees, and the girl turns completely red and flustered by the unexpected compliment. He explains that she did her best to help her friend, and that's why she's a good person. The blonde student is completely flushed and speechless at the guy's sincerity. The girl gets all flustered by the compliment, while the guy stares at her, confused and not understanding. Saying it's getting late, she runs out of the store to pay for her things and leave. Alone, the big guy wonders why she ran away like that and suspects something. The next day at school, the atmosphere was much more hectic and full of gossip. Suddenly, several students' jaws drop, and they blush at something they see in the hallway. A very cute red-haired girl passes by them, making everyone wonder who she was. The students notice she's heading to their classroom and finally recognize the newcomer. With an envelope in her hand, the red-haired young woman prepares for her big moment. She hands the envelope to the blonde guy, challenging him to a date over the weekend, but the guy doesn't recognize her and asks who she is, leaving the girl completely embarrassed. The story begins in the bustling city of Shibuya, where the trio decides to do a little shopping. The blonde praises her friend's courage for confessing her feelings, and the redhead thanks her, asking to be called Karen. Then, the blonde Rika suggests Karen call her by her first name too, leaving the big guy feeling a bit left out. When they get to the store, the guy feels like he's in another world, since he's never set foot in a girl's clothing section. He just remembers being dragged along by his friend to help her Paul pick out an outfit for her date. Suddenly, Rika gets excited and points out a cool dress she saw in a fancy display window. All excited, she ends up pulling the redhead by the arm and tells the girl to go try on the outfit right away. The blonde throws a bunch of clothes at her friend, who is left stunned, not knowing what to do with it all, and with a smile, the girl pushes her friend into the fitting room and tells her to get changed quickly. The redhead complains that these cute clothes aren't her style at all, but the other girl already has a plan. Rika leans in and says that her big sis will handle everything and tells her friend to just chill. Out of nowhere, our hero hears some strange noises and wonders what they're doing in there. With trembling hands, the girl adjusts her new skirt, feeling very nervous and insecure. She comes out complaining that the skirt is too short, but her friend smiles, thrilled with the result. The blonde asks her friend what he thought, and he replies that the outfit looked really good on the girl. The redhead turns bright red from the compliment, and the protagonist thinks about how much clothes can change a person. Meanwhile, at the Tojo clan mansion, the situation was very heavy, with a lot of tension in the air. In a meeting room, a serious man with red hair stares silently at his men. This man is Tojo Nado, the sixth head of the fearsome clan and the father of our red-haired girl. He's known as the Crimson Tide, and announces that it seems his daughter, Karen, has gotten herself a boyfriend. Furious, the boss slams a knife on the table, startling everyone in the room. The men are shocked and start wondering who would have the nerve to get close to their young lady. The protective father yells that he won't give his daughter away to just anyone and calls over one of his henchmen. He wants to know the boy's name, and his assistant confirms that the kid's name is Sakamoto. The man informs him that the full name is Ryuji Sakamoto and that he goes to the same school as the girl. He continues, saying he took the girl to a beauty salon the day before everything happened, and that today, the girl's credit card was used at a bunch of stores to buy some clothes. Because of this, the assistant believes the girl has a date with the young man over the weekend. Hearing the news, the clan leader gets ticked off and yells the boy's name with pure hatred in his eyes. Still fuming, he orders all the guys who are free over the weekend to assemble. Their mission is to follow the girl on her date and not let the kid try anything funny. All 8 important members, plus the leader, confirm they'll take part in this wild mission. Far from there, the trio of friends is relaxing at a diner after a tiring day of shopping. The blonde complains that she's totally wiped out from walking around all the city's stores. Even while complaining about being tired, the girl eats her food, and her friend looks at her, finding it all amusing. The redhead thanks them for all the help, and her friend tells her to relax, because they're good friends now. The red-haired girl says her friend helped from the very beginning, and the other replies that it was a lot of fun, and with a determined look, the girl seems to have gained more confidence after receiving all this support. She asks the protagonist if one burger is enough, and says she'll pay for as many as he can eat. The redhead insists, saying the food is nothing compared to all the help the big guy gave her. Our hero realizes she's not just a problem child and actually has a very caring side. The girl asks why he's staring, and her friend jokes that she has ketchup on her face. All flustered, the girl searches her face for something, and Rika asks if she already knows the spot for the date. The redhead confirms she's going to a cafe and then a movie, thinking that's more than enough, but the blonde yells that she's way too innocent, and her friend is startled by her reaction. She explains that a normal date won't win his heart, and then suggests another place. And with a smile, she shows a picture of an aquarium on her phone, leaving the other girl very surprised. The girl talks about the place with glowing waves and fish that dance among colorful corals. She says the dimmer light is great for conversation and for their feelings to grow stronger. Rika fancies herself a love master, and our hero has some doubts about his confident friend. As night falls, the two friends finally say goodbye to the redhead after a very long day of shopping. The blonde wishes her the best of luck on her date, while the protagonist smiles, happy with the outcome. Thanking them for their help, the red-haired girl leaves, waving to her two new best friends. Then, the pair of friends waves back as they watch their classmate walk away, happy about her date. Soon after, the girl asks her friend what he's doing tomorrow, and he says he's going to read some comics. And with a sly smile, the blonde invites him to follow their friend on her date, leaving the protagonist shocked. She says they have to help out, and he agrees, even though he thinks it's all a huge overreaction. Celebrating their victory, the young woman gives her friend a high five, forming a new spy duo. The next day, the sun rises on a new morning that promises lots of emotions and plenty of mix-ups. Just then, some girls on the street are surprised to notice a group of very suspicious-looking men, and with wide eyes they can't understand what those weird guys are doing around there. The leader of that group is the redhead's father, who has disguised himself to spy on his daughter's date. Alongside his henchmen, the Yakuza boss stares at the place where his daughter will have her first date. A short time later, the lovebirds finally arrive at the place they had agreed on. The blonde guy arrives a little late and waves to the girl, calling her name excitedly, and with a shy smile, he apologizes for being late and asks if she had been waiting long. A bit embarrassed, the redhead says she just got there and that he doesn't need to worry about anything. At that moment, the two fall into a very awkward silence, not knowing what to say to each other. To break the ice, the girl compliments the boy's clothes, leaving him completely flustered. He thanks her for the compliment, and the two start walking down the street together, still a bit awkward with each other. She then suggests they get some tea to plan the rest of the day, and the blonde guy agrees immediately. And with a kind gesture, the boy takes her gift to carry it for her, while someone watches from a distance. Hidden away, the pair of friends observes the couple and notices that the girl's disguise turned out perfect. The blonde starts running, very excited, and the protagonist yells for her to wait up, because she's in a hurry. The couple walks to a famous cafe, and the girl comments that the place seems really nice. From afar, the redhead's father gets very angry when he sees the young man with his precious daughter. He freaks out because the guy made her wait for 5 minutes, and one of his men tries to calm him down. The assistant warns that they are drawing attention, as people are looking at them suspiciously. He explains that 9 people together is a crowd and suggests they split up into pairs. The leader agrees with the idea and orders everyone to divide into pairs from now on. Inside the coffee shop, the atmosphere is really nice and perfect for a first date full of romance. Suddenly, a giant and delicious strawberry parfait arrives at the disguised spy's table. The blonde gets all excited about her dessert, and her friend asks if she can really eat the whole thing. And with a smile, she challenges him, asking if he can't even handle a simple parfait. But the protagonist notices something strange in the cafe. because there are several suspicious men there. He comments that the place is full of weird customers, especially older men. With that, the guy starts to suspect that those people are connected to the red-haired girl. In particular, he focuses on a guy in dark glasses with a very suspicious scar on his face. He notices the guy is wearing a very strange wig, but it somehow reminds him of his friend. Ignoring the spies, the couple talks excitedly about the dolphins at the city aquarium. They agree to go see the dolphins first, as soon as they get to the city aquarium. And with a huge smile on her face, the redhead thinks that this day is going to be very fun and special. But on the other side, the protagonist was breaking a cold sweat, worried about what could go wrong. Looking at all the mobsters in the place, he feels that his friend's date is going to be very difficult. After coffee, the whole group heads to Shibuya Station to catch the train to the aquarium. Inside the crowded train car, the redhead ends up falling asleep on the blonde guy's shoulder from exhaustion. With all the pushing and shoving from the crowd, the guy gets thrown against his friend, who is left completely stunned. Terrified, the blonde yells for people to stop pushing, because she was being squished. With her face pressed against her friend, she thinks she's never been this close to him and gets nervous. Totally flustered, the girl with glasses stares at the guy's face from up close without even blinking. The guy asks her to hang in there for just a little longer because they were almost there. When the doors open, the crowd shoves everyone out, and the blonde screams in terror. Afraid of losing his friend in the confusion, the protagonist holds her hand tightly and firmly. He pulls her out of the train car and runs, so they don't lose the couple, who were already ahead of them. They finally reach their destination in the modern district of Ikebukuro, where the aquarium is located. Out of breath, the guy says they almost didn't make it off that packed train. The girl in the hat gets her friend's attention and says he was still holding her hand. The guy quickly lets go of his classmate's hand, completely embarrassed, and apologizes for what happened. And with a red face, she tells him to hold her hand more gently next time. The young man is surprised and wonders what she meant by that next time comment. Suddenly, he realizes the couple has crossed the street and that they missed the signal to cross. But he calms down and says their destination is the aquarium, so they just have to follow in the same direction. On the way, they run into the disguised Yakuza gang, and the guy gets very annoyed. The mobsters complain about the crowd, and the protagonist recognizes the guys from the red-haired girl's house. He wonders how he didn't think they'd be there, and decides to be more careful not to be seen. And with his hood up, he tries to hide, but knows they might see him because of his height. The group's leader notices the pair of friends and finds the guy in the hood a bit suspicious from a distance. His assistant immediately recognizes the two as the young lady's friends who helped her the day before. He explains that the two of them went to their house to help the redhead get ready for the date. The leader understands everything and deduces that the friends are there to make sure the date goes well. At this, he decides that since he lost sight of his daughter, he'll follow her friends, so he's not just standing around. And with a new mission in mind, the group of mobsters starts following the spy duo closely. Finally, at the aquarium entrance, the redhead is impressed by the size and beauty of the place. The blonde guy invites her in, and they go inside together, very excited to see the marine animals. Nearby, two guys recognize the blonde young man, and one of them gets a very angry look in his eyes. They confirm that it was that jerk Sakamoto who kicked them out of the kendo club. The bully gets mad seeing his rival enjoying a date after all that trouble. With a wicked smile, he swears that this time he won't let our hero get away so easily. Inside the aquarium, the protagonist and his blonde friend watch the couple from afar, well hidden. The dim lighting of the place makes it hard to see, but they can see the happiness of their two friends. The protagonist notices something with great certainty while spying on his classmate's date. Their date was going much better than he thought, and the redhead seemed to be very happy. Seeing the scene, he starts to wonder if they really need to keep spying on the lovebirds. Leaving the aquarium, the couple goes to a nearby park for a romantic picnic. The girl shows off the food she prepared, full of kimbap and sushi, leaving the blonde guy quite shocked. The spy duo also takes the opportunity to eat the delicious food the blonde girl had made. With a happy smile, the young woman tastes the food, and the protagonist agrees that it was all very good. From a distance, they hear the couple talking about how cool the aquarium was and how many fish there were. With her heart pounding, the redhead offers the lunch she prepared to the guy, who just stares at her. The blonde notices her friend's nervousness, and the protagonist says she's anxious to see his reaction. He remembers she practiced for 3 days and asked for his help to make the perfect meal. The girl opens the lunchbox with trembling hands, while the blonde guy watches with great curiosity. Very impressed, the guy asks if she really made all that by herself and compliments the food. And with a smile, she invites him to eat as much as he wants, and he starts with the rice balls. The blonde guy takes a big bite of the rice ball, while the redhead waits anxiously for his reaction. With her eyes closed, the girl gets tense, waiting to find out what he thought of her lunch. The guy makes a face like he really enjoyed the food, leaving the cook much more relieved. With sparkling eyes, the girl celebrates that the food turned out well, and the blonde guy agrees with her. And with a smile, the redhead offers a piece of chicken to the guy, who is a bit surprised. He opens his mouth and eats the chicken the girl offers, very happy with her affectionate gesture. With her mouth full, the girl picks up another piece of food with her chopsticks. All very excited, with a smile, she asks what he thought, and the blonde guy chews, satisfied with the taste of the food. He gives a thumbs up and says that one was also really delicious. Far away, the protagonist offers some of his food to his friend, who gladly accepts. Back to the couple, the guy offers a potato croquette to the redhead, who is left speechless. He says that he's eaten enough for now, and that she should eat a little too. The red-haired girl turns completely red, happy with the guy's kindness and affection. The spies comment that the couple is getting along very well, and the blonde agrees with a big smile. Suddenly, the friend says she also wants to have a romantic date, just like that one day. With a serious look, the guy asks about her knowledge as a love and romance guru. With a clever smile, the blonde confesses she's never dated and that she learned everything from manga. Seeing that the couple is finishing their picnic, the protagonist decides to follow them again. The young woman gets annoyed and starts hitting her friend, yelling at him not to ignore her and to pay attention. With a very calm smile on his face, the guy in the hood seems to be enjoying the situation. The sunlight shines through the park trees, creating a perfect atmosphere for the end of the date. The couple walk side by side in a comfortable silence, enjoying the moment they have together. The blonde comments that they're in a really good mood and that soon the guy will confess his feelings to her. Out of nowhere, the protagonist senses a strange presence and realizes something is about to happen. The blonde guy drops the gift he got from the girl and stares at what's in front of him. To the couple's surprise, the two guys from the kendo club have decided to get revenge for last time. With a mocking smile, they say they've been looking for the guy everywhere. The couple is completely shocked and speechless, coming face to face with the guys from the kendo club. From a distance, the spy duo is also very surprised and doesn't understand what's happening. The bullies accuse him of stealing their girl and now being with a new one. The blonde wonders if she should call for help, but her friend says he'll handle it if he has to. The blonde guy asks what they want, and the guys threaten him, saying he's going to end up in the hospital. The protagonist recognizes the two as the newbies who were kicked out of the old kendo club. The redhead remembers when the guys dragged her into an alley, and the young man ended up saving her. They complain that they were kicked out because of him and can't see the club's upperclassmen anymore. With rage in her eyes, the red-haired girl yells that they are complete idiots. She points at them and says that this attitude is the reason they got kicked out of the club. The bullies are surprised to finally recognize the upperclassmen, all done up with makeup and nice clothes. One of them asks why she's all dressed up and if she's on a date with the blonde boy. With contempt, the bully says they don't look good together and that she should know her place. The girl yells at them to shut up and says they can't talk to her like that. But out of nowhere, A third guy appears and says they didn't come to this fight alone. The bully calls his older brother over to help with the revenge, leaving the couple very worried. The older brother stares down the blonde guy with a smirk and calls him bold for messing with them. The guy brags that his brother was a legend from Kitayama and was still active. The blonde guy tells the girl to run, saying they only want him so she'd be safe. The older brother gets annoyed and tells him to stop acting like the hero of the story. With a swift move, the creep grabs the redhead's arm very forcefully. The girl cries out from the sharp feeling, and the guy invites her to have some fun with him, instead of the loser. The blonde guy yells his friend's name, and the man says he's ruining everyone's fun. With a single punch, the hero manages to knock the bully to the ground quite easily. From a distance, the protagonist gets ready to jump into the fight and tells his friend to wait for him. The girl screams her friend's name desperately, while the brother holds her tightly. The creep mocks the blonde guy on the ground and says he's taking his girlfriend as a prize. But suddenly, a shadow appears behind the guy, who doesn't even notice the danger approaching. Our hero appears out of nowhere and asks the guy who he thinks he is to act like that. With a single grip, the hero twists the man's wrist, making him cry out from the surprise move. He then throws him away with just one hand, leaving the two younger bullies in shock. With a ticked-off look, the protagonist warns them to get their filthy hands off his good friend. The bully gets up and asks where the guy came from, leaving his cronies worried. And with great anger, the leader of the guys accuses him of a sneak attack and challenges him to a fair fight. He gets up and stares at the protagonist with contempt, wondering what kind of training the guy has to be like that. In his thoughts, the creep says the guy is just a big dude who knows how to scuffle a little. From a distance, the redhead's father and his men watch the commotion, wondering what they should do. With a drop of sweat on his face, the Yakuza leader watches the scene in complete silence. A little while earlier, they had lost sight of the duo and were looking for them in the park. The assistant sees the fight and points it out to the boss, showing him what was happening. They see the redhead yelling to be let go, while the guy holds her with a smirk on his face. The super protective father gets ticked off and prepares to jump into the fray to save his daughter. One of his men asks if they should get their tools, but the boss tells them to wait. The leader tells them not to get involved in a kid's fight and to take a good look at the young man with a dark and powerful aura. The protagonist faces the three guys with hatred in his eyes. The Yakuza boss feels a heavy pressure coming from the young man and is completely in a state of shock. He recognizes that feeling of fear and remembers a fight he had in the past against a monster. That monster was Ivan the Destroyer, the head of the Russian mob he once fought. When he found the mobster in Japan, he felt the same aura of fear and power that he's feeling now. That man was a very strong monster who awakened a pure fear in all his enemies. The leader doesn't understand how a student can have the same aura as a Russian mob boss. And filled with anger, the protagonist decides to forget the script and protect his friends no matter what. With one step forward, he prepares to take out all the trash in front of him. The guy in the hood tells the redhead to take her friend and get away, and to let him handle the rest. She tries to argue, but the protagonist cuts her off, saying he won't lose to guys like them. The bully gets irritated and yells at the guy not to ignore him, since he's standing right in front of him. And with a quick step, the creep lunges towards the protagonist with all his speed. He throws a sequence of rapid punches, but the big guy doesn't even flinch from all the attacks. The henchmen celebrate their boss's speed, saying they can barely see his fists. The bully brabs about his speed and says the guy couldn't even dodge his blows. But suddenly, he realizes something is very wrong with his attack and gets really confused. The protagonist didn't even move from the punches, and the guy doesn't understand the iron jaw he has. Very irritated, the creep prepares for an even stronger punch and charges forward with everything he's got. He lands a solid punch on the big guy's face, who finally feels a bit of the impact. The blonde friend yells her friend's name, worried about the outcome of this sudden fight. The redhead also yells the guy's name with eyes wide with fear and a lot of concern. and with an injured face, the protagonist just stares at the bully with an empty and intimidating look. The creep is terrified by the guy's reaction and doesn't understand how he's still standing. With a cold stare, our hero warns that from this moment on, everything counts as self-defense. The bully doesn't understand the threat and prepares for the next attack, unaware of the danger he's in. With a single punch, the protagonist hits the guy's chin with an absolutely absurd amount of force. In self-defense, only a single strike is allowed, and the big guy used all of his immense strength. The leader of the guys is sent flying from the punch and lands hard on the park ground, unresponsive. The henchmen try to wake up their boss, but realize he was taken down with a single blow. The three bullies are left with their mouths open, shocked by our guy's strength and coldness. With his face injured, the protagonist warns that they touched his friends, and they're going to pay dearly. The henchman threatens him, saying his dad is an important officer, and that he's going to be in big trouble. With disdain, our hero says he'll fix their rotten attitudes with his own 2 hands. He grabs the bully's head, who screams in fear, begging for his life and asking for forgiveness. With one last cry of desperation, the guy falls to the ground, defeated and with no chance to fight back. The 2 henchmen beg for their lives, afraid of what the protagonist might do to them. He then tells the 3 of them to disappear and never show their faces in front of his friends again. Terrified, they agree and run off, while the blonde approaches her injured friend. The young woman panics over the wound on the guy's face, and he says he's fine. With a furious look, the girl yells that he's not fine and drags him to the nearest pharmacy. Protagonist is startled by his friend's reaction and thinks he's never seen her so mad before. After treating the wound, the 2 walk together through the park in a thoughtful silence. From a distance, they watch the couple sitting on a bench, and the mood between them seems very heavy. With a bandage on his forehead, the guy says to give the 2 of them some time to talk alone. The redhead apologizes to the blonde guy, saying he got hurt because of her and her problems. But the guy says it wasn't her fault, and that the guys were after him from the start. With her heart racing, the girl calls him by his name and prepares for her big moment. She gathers her courage and looks him in the eyes with a determined and emotional expression. With all her sincerity, the young woman confesses to the guy, saying she really likes him. The blonde guy is left completely speechless by the sudden and unexpected declaration of love. From a distance, the 2 spies watch the scene with their mouths agape, not believing what they just saw. With sparkling eyes, the redhead asks the guy to go out with her and start a new romance. With a blushing face, she begs for a chance to show her feelings and win him over. The young man is silent for a moment, thinking about how to respond to her confession. With a sad look, the guy seems to have made a difficult decision and prepares to speak. He apologizes and says he can't give her the answer she's hoping for, leaving the girl confused. She asks why, and he explains that he has his own reasons for not being able to accept. The blonde guy reveals that he promised to marry a girl when he was a kid and needs to keep that promise, at least until he finds that girl again. He doesn't want to date anyone else. Heartbroken, the redhead listens to the story, unable to believe what's happening. With her eyes full of tears, the young woman is devastated by the rejection from her first love. She asks if he still loves that girl, and he says he remembers liking her a lot. The guy says he cried a lot the day she moved away, and the redhead understands it was his first love. Suddenly, the girl stands up and says that, if that's his decision, she'll give up on everything. With a sad smile, she says goodbye and says she'll see him at school next week like normal. The blonde guy waves back with a sad look as he watches the girl walk away all alone. With quick steps and tears in her eyes, the redhead runs away from the park so she can cry. The blonde approaches her friend, and he asks her to go on ahead because he needs to do something. The guy says goodbye to his friend and says he'll see her at school next week without any explanation. With a worried look, the young woman watches her friend walk away with a very serious expression. She notices that he seems a bit sad and wonders what happened to make him feel that way. At a bus stop, The red-haired girl waits alone with a very empty look in her eyes. With her head down, she cries silently, thinking about how her first love just ended. Suddenly, she sees a pair of shoes stop in front of her and lifts her head in surprise. To her surprise, the protagonist appears and asks if she's okay with a concerned look. With her eyes full of tears, the girl can't answer and just stares at him in silence. The guy hands her a tissue and says she doesn't need to hold back because it's good to cry. He comforts her and tells her to take a deep breath and that crying is normal in moments like this. Embarrassed, the redhead says she's never cried in front of anyone, and her friend reassures her. Thinking about the word friends, the girl looks at him with a different, slightly calmer expression. She then reveals that she knew he and their friend were following them, leaving the protagonist shocked. He asks how long she knew, and the big guy panics at the thought of being discovered. With a smile, the redhead says that if they were worried enough to follow them, it was a good sign. She apologizes for the outcome and says she thought that if she changed, she could win the blonde guy back. She realizes there was never any space for her in the guy's heart from the very beginning. With a hand on her chest, the girl says it hurts so much that she feels like she could go crazy. The redhead confesses she's never felt this way in her entire life, and then looks at him. With a trembling voice and eyes full of tears, she prepares to let it all out. The young woman yells that she really loved him and starts crying hard on her new friend's shoulder. He realizes that now the girl seems like a real person and not just a character from a manga. Thinking more about it, he notes the same is true for the blonde friend who is always helping him. The guy remembers how he always treated them like manga characters and not real people, but he wonders if he can call someone who feels pain so vividly a character. And with a determined look, the big guy tells his friend to get up from the bench and stop crying. He jokes that if she stays there, someone might call the cops for disturbing the peace. With a tear on her face, the girl looks at him in silence, not knowing how to react to that joke. Suddenly, a smile starts to appear on the young woman's face as she finally manages to calm down. The guy says that a smile suits her better and that she shouldn't be sad like that. Out of nowhere, he takes off his jacket, revealing his defined abs and leaving his friend very confused. He hands her the jacket and tells the girl to put it on so they can go somewhere. The big guy takes her to a karaoke place, and the girl doesn't understand her friend's sudden idea. He explains that she's going to scream and let out all her bad luck at this fun karaoke spot. The redhead tries to complain, but her friend pulls her into the place without giving her a chance to escape. With her hood on, the girl finds her friend's idea very random and completely unexpected. Looking at his friend, the guy realizes they are the same people with real emotions. With a smile on her face, the redhead seems to be having fun, and the big guy is satisfied. He finally understands that they are people who feel and who need support and friendship. From a distance, one of the mobsters wipes sweat from his face, moved by the scene he just witnessed. The Yakuza leader says the young man is a good kid and that he's happy he's his daughter's friend. In a world as tough as theirs, he knows that kids like the protagonist are very rare. With a smile, the boss thinks that maybe that boy will be someone very special in the future. The big guy also hopes that their paths will cross again in some other adventure. At the karaoke place, the redhead sings with all her might and tells her friend to sing louder to let it all out. She warns him that the next song is his turn, and the guy is terrified at the idea of singing. Far away, the blonde friend stares at her phone, thinking about the events of the hectic day. The next day, our hero's blonde friend goes to his house with a really excited smile. When she gets to the guy's room, the girl is surprised and says she's never seen a boy's room before. Then she gets curious and asks if every guy has a bunch of workout stuff, and he gets embarrassed. Full of curiosity, the girl gets closer to one of the weights lying on the bedroom floor. The girl tries to pick up the weight, but complains that she can't move the thing because it's too heavy. The boy explains that she wouldn't be able to lift it because it's half her body weight. The story then flashes back to the past, showing that the two of them always walked home from school together. One day, the girl's stomach suddenly starts rumbling really loudly on their way. Hearing the noise, the guy asks his friend if she's hungry, and she gets embarrassed. So she invites the guy to eat at his family's restaurant, and her friend is really surprised. With a big grin, the young man accepts and says that just one meal won't be a problem for them. The two of them then arrive at the hero's family restaurant, which was on the upper floor of his house. Starving, the blonde-haired girl starts devouring the food with great enthusiasm and joy. She eats everything in sight, and our protagonist just watches, finding the scene pretty funny. With a cup of soda, the girl seems to be loving every second of that meal. The girl compliments her friend's mom and says the food was just really good and tasty. The boy's mother is very happy with the compliment, and the friend thanks her for the great food. Our hero notices that his mom really liked his friend and that she really knows how to eat. Out of nowhere, the girl pokes him in the back and tells him it's time for them to go somewhere else. The boy is startled and asks where they need to go in such a hurry. Giving a little wink, she says it's obvious they're going to his room to talk. The scene cuts to the present, with the guy thinking he was so dumb for not suspecting anything. He then enters the room with a tray of drinks and sees the girl sitting in his chair. The girl with glasses was reading one of his mangas and asks if he's into this kind of story. Very embarrassed, the guy says he only bought the mangas to use as a reference for the future. She teases him and says she knows he loves shounen manga and that he doesn't need to worry. The young woman finds a complete collection of golden sakurai and asks if he's a big fan of the series. And with their eyes shining, the two discover they have the same favorite manga and are thrilled. He shows her his collection of first editions, and the girl is shocked by the rarity of the books. The guy says the art and the ending of this manga are perfect and that he absolutely loves this work. With her mouth wide open, the girl seems to agree with every word her friend is saying. He continues to praise the characters' minds, and she says she's never seen anyone like it so much. With a smile, the young woman says her dad will be very happy to hear all this praise. She reveals that her father is the creator of Golden Samurai, leaving the guy completely speechless. Our hero is totally shocked by the news and wonders how he didn't figure it out sooner. He remembers her last name is Kishimoto and that her hair isn't naturally blonde like he thought. The guy also remembers hearing that the author's wife was British, which explains everything. He feels like a complete idiot for not noticing the signs, even after going to her house. Suddenly, the boy grabs her by the shoulders and asks if he can get an autograph from her dad. Crying with joy, the protagonist thinks this is the biggest win a fan could ever have. Our hero gets really curious and asks his super excited friend a question. He wants to know why she likes this manga so much when her dad has had other hits. The girl says she likes others, but this one is special to her for no particular reason. With a smile, she starts talking about Volume 5 of the Samurai story to her friend. She explains that the hero of the story always puts his friends first above all else. Then the scene shows the guy yelling at the bullies not to touch his friend. And right after, he punches the jerk to protect his classmate who couldn't defend herself. The girl says the character is strong and kind, and our friend ends up blushing all over. And with a smile on her face, the young woman reveals that the hero's attitude reminded her of someone. The very next day at school, things promise to get much more interesting for everyone. The guy goes to the student council room to talk about the so-called Golden Week. The president confirms and reminds him that he promised to help her during the entire holiday. She explains that the school will be receiving a new exchange student from Russia. The guy understands everything and asks if she wants help picking out a gift for the new student. With a super confident smile, the black-haired girl confirms that's exactly the idea. He agrees to help on the first day of the holiday, as long as it doesn't mess with his own plans. The president celebrates and playfully threatens him in case he breaks his promise, leaving the boy quite surprised. She dismisses him, and her friend notices that the girl's mood improved all of a sudden. Because of this, He decides he's going to ask his blonde friend to postpone their meeting to the 30th. Our hero then walks back to his classroom, which was Class 2B. In the hallway, a classmate comes up and asks if he's heard the latest news. The boy talks about the troublemakers from the Kendo club who ended up getting expelled from school. He says that the two bullies requested to transfer schools on the same day the fight happened. The big guy just smiles and says they must have their own reasons for wanting to leave the school. He thinks it served them right, and that at least they won't bother his friends anymore. A new teacher enters the room and talks about being late for their first class. She tells everyone to sit down and open their English books so she can start her class. The class question was a very simple one about which of the two fruits was cheaper. She reads the sentence out loud and nudges her friend to get her attention for the class. The 24-year-old teacher, Mizuki, says that since today is the 24th, student number 24 gets all nervous because he knows he's going to be chosen. But she asks the person behind him to read, and this sends our big guy into a complete panic. With no other choice, the guy stands up to answer the English teacher's question. He reads the text perfectly, introducing himself as James, a student from England. Everyone in the classroom is left speechless by their classmate's perfect pronunciation. The teacher then asks what a good answer would be for the question in the book. The guy recommends the city of Osaka as a very good place for tourists to visit. The teacher shows no reaction, and the protagonist wonders about the reason for her expression. She praises his perfect answer, and the guy scratches his head awkwardly at the scene. He sits down and thinks the teacher hated his answer, while his friend laughs at the situation. Very surprised by the answer, the teacher praises him for doing so well in class. The guy notices the teacher's slightly weird reaction and just looks at her in silence. All nervous, the teacher tries to explain what the question meant to the whole class. He realizes he was right about his new English teacher's very strange reaction. The guy then figures out that teacher Mizuki seems to be terribly afraid of him. He remembers the rumor that he single-handedly defeated a gang of 50 bikers, but he thinks this is the first time someone seems to be genuinely afraid of him. Because of this, he decides to act as normally as possible so he doesn't scare anyone else. In the teacher's lounge, the woman starts looking up the student on her computer. She keeps saying the guy's name while typing quickly on the keyboard to find out. She sees that the guy's record is perfect and can't believe what she's reading about him. Her mind creates theories that he's a Yakuza heir on a top-secret mission. With her imagination running wild, the teacher starts breaking into a cold sweat over her own crazy ideas. She imagines the guy with a very scary face introducing himself to her in the classroom. Out of nowhere, the protagonist walks into the room, and the teacher is startled by his visit. In his thoughts, the guy realizes the teacher is completely terrified of him. Our big guy says he's there for the career counseling she had mentioned earlier. With a nervous smile, the teacher tries to hide her fear and faces the boy in front of her. She invites him to sit and asks what he's planning to do in the future. The teacher wants to know if he plans on taking over his family's business someday. She imagines the guy as a Yakuza boss and despairs at the very possibility. Carefully, she asks what his parents do for a living, and the guy answers right away. He says his parents own a restaurant in Setagaya, and the teacher gets very confused. She's very relieved by the news and says she would love to visit the restaurant one day. She then asks which subjects the guy feels most confident in at school. The teacher suggests a career in a STEM field, but he says he doesn't agree with that. She's very surprised by his answer and looks at the boy, not understanding what he meant. The protagonist says he wants to do what he truly loves, not what's easiest. He has a trauma with engineering and says that being good at something isn't the same as loving it. The guy asks what she wanted to be before she ended up becoming a teacher at the school. She asks him to promise he won't laugh at what she's about to tell him. With a smile, the teacher reveals that her big dream was to become a voice actress. The woman says she fell in love with a character from a robot anime when she was a child, But when she shared her dream, her old teacher told her to give up on that idea. He said she should look for a stable job instead of just any old hobby. At the time, she followed his advice, but regretted everything as soon as she got into college. The young woman realized her mistake when she saw a poster for an event with her favorite voice actress. The woman thinks that it's her life, but she let other people decide her future. She advises him to think carefully about his choices, as someone who's been through it before. With a thoughtful look, the guy listens to the teacher's advice in silence, paying close attention. With a smile, the teacher finishes her advice and looks at him, waiting for a response. The guy thanks her for the advice and says he'll think very carefully about his future. Right after, a colleague comes over and asks about the famous new student who arrived at the school. The teacher comments on the rumors that the guy is a Yakuza prince or a brawler, but the woman defends him, saying all the rumors were just silly misunderstandings. She says the big guy is actually a very considerate and super kind student. The man is very surprised and promises not to judge students just by their appearance anymore. With a relieved smile, the teacher is happy to have cleared up the whole misunderstanding. The scene changes to Golden Week in front of a super busy temple in Tokyo. The protagonist arrives at the meeting spot and notices he got there a little bit early. From a distance, he can see the student council president and calls her by her title. With a very dark aura, the girl turns towards him with a very angry expression. She yells that he's very late, and the guy is confused by what she's saying. The young woman grabs his arm and asks if he has any idea what time it is. Pointing to a non-existent watch, she continues to scold him for his supposed lateness. The guy shows her his phone and says there are still 10 minutes until their meeting time. All embarrassed, he apologizes, and she says she'll forgive her friend just this once. In return, she points to a shop and says he'll have to buy her an ice cream. The young man is very confused and asks why he has to buy the girl ice cream. In the end, he ends up buying her the ice cream, and the girl is thrilled with her treat. The two of them eat ice cream together, and he's glad she really liked the flavor. He then asks where they're going to buy the gift, and the girl freezes on the spot. She plays it cool and says she knows where to go, but her friend realizes she's already forgotten everything. A voice in the young woman's ear says there's a craft shop 2 blocks from where they are. The mysterious voice suggests she take the guy there to pick out the gift. Her assistants tell her to act normal and use her girly charms on the guy. The assistants of the family's butler and maid, who are spying on the girl from a distance. They enter the store and find a giant Buddha statue that was also all gold. The shop owner suggests the statue, and the girl agrees, thinking it's a really good idea. But our big guy sees the price and is shocked that the item costs 4 million. The guy gets all awkward because there's no way he can pay, while the girl just ignores him. The owner keeps complimenting her good taste, and the young woman suddenly feels a strange chill. Through the earpiece, the maid tells her boss to stop yelling inside the store. She reminds the girl that they're there for a date, not to visit sacred temples. The assistant tells the young woman to look back and see the guy completely bored on his phone. The maid explains that rule number 1 of a date is not to let your partner get bored. The girl panics and pulls her friend outside, saying there's something very urgent. She drags the guy out of the store, and the owner yells about his rare Buddha collection. Away from the store, the guy stops and asks if the president is feeling okay right now. Worried about his friend, he looks at her and asks if something happened to her. The girl plays it off, says she felt a bit dizzy, and calls him to their next spot. Following her assistant's orders, she takes the guy to a local clothing store. They arrive at a store that sells super beautiful and colorful kimonos and yukatas. The shop owner shows them a blue kimono and says it would be a very good gift for the student. The guy looks at the outfit and asks for the council president's opinion on it. With a superior look, she tells the owner to show them the best piece in the store, no holds barred. The saleswoman gets excited by the challenge and prepares to show her best merchandise. She shows a 500,000 yen kimono, leaving the guy's jaw on the floor at the price. The girl rejects all the options saying none of them are her style. Time passes and they're still in the store, unable to decide which gift to buy. In the end, he says the last two seem good, and that the decision is now up to her. The owner then suggests that the young woman try on the clothes to help her choose better. The saleswoman asks the guy what he thinks of the idea of his friend going to change. With a smile, the lady takes the black-haired girl to the store's fitting room. In the fitting room, the saleswoman takes off a mask and shows the girl who she really is. The president is shocked to see her maid Manami disguised inside that store. The maid reveals she's a ninja and that the shop owner lent them the place. The young woman understands that everything was part of the ninja's plan to help with her date. The assistant rushes her and says she's going to make her look beautiful, and the young woman gets super nervous. Outside, the big guy waits, completely bored, and wonders why it's taking so long. To pass the time, he plays a fighting game on his phone and manages to win the match. With his phone in hand, the guy patiently waits for his friend to finish changing. Suddenly, the fitting room door opens, and a very elegant figure appears out of nowhere. The guy turns completely red and is left speechless seeing his classmate like that. Wearing a black kimono full of flowers, the young woman asks her friend how she looks. Our big guy is left wide-eyed, unable to answer his friend's question. With his face all red, the protagonist checks her out from head to toe in admiration. The black-haired girl watches him in silence, waiting for his response. With her friend's silence, she starts to get a little nervous and also quite insecure. After a moment, the guy finally manages to say something to his classmate. He says she looks wonderful, and the young woman is surprised by the compliment. The guy adds that the outfit suits his friend perfectly. All flustered, our protagonist looks away, not knowing what to say next. With a victorious laugh, she boasts about her beauty, and her friend agrees with her. Very excited, the girl says she's going to try on the yukata and asks him to wait there. The fitting room door closes, and the guy goes back to his little game on his phone again. Inside the fitting room, the young woman is all sweaty, with her heart beating very fast. With a red face, she touches her cheeks, thinking about the compliment her friend gave her. She wonders what to do, because she didn't expect that reaction from her classmate. From a distance, the student council president and her assistants watch the protagonist. Just then, the guy and his classmate walk past them, and the maid is shocked by the scene. The black-haired girl thinks about how her friend stands out, and that they arrived by train together. He then says he'll call a car for them to go to lunch, and she's shocked by the luxury. The guy notices they're drawing a lot of attention and suggests they hurry up a bit. He then notices a strange movement behind him and asks what that was. But the young man sees a couple taking a selfie and thinks they weren't taking pictures of them. The girl's two assistants move away, acting as if nothing happened. The maid, Manami, is nervous and breaking into a cold sweat because they were almost caught by their boss. The vice president complains that she got too close and that they were almost discovered. He says he needs good photos for the report, while Manami calls him a brat. The woman warns him not to let his hatred for the guy be noticed in front of the girl. With that, the two students arrive in front of a ramen restaurant for lunch. The guy says that's his favorite spot, and the young woman seems a bit surprised by the choice. He tells her to take her time choosing and says he's going to the restroom real quick before they eat. Suddenly, the girl's butler feels a sharp pain in his stomach and freezes. The maid asks what happened, and he says his stomach started hurting out of nowhere. He then blames the ice cream he had earlier, and his friend tells him to go to the restroom. In a lot of pain, the man runs to the restroom, saying he can't hold it in anymore. He runs to the men's restroom to relieve the stomach catch he suddenly got. Right after, the butler comes out of the restroom, very relieved and with a smile on his face. But he runs right into the protagonist, who was also leaving the restroom at that moment. The man with glasses points at the guy and calls him by name, leaving the boy very confused. The restaurant door opens, and the council president gets ready to greet her friend. With a smile, the young woman says he's finally back, but the scene leaves her speechless. She's shocked to see the guy entering the restaurant with her 2 assistants. He explains that he ran into them by chance and invited them to eat as a thank you. The girl gets very angry with the 2 of them and wonders what happened to her romantic date. They all sit together at the same table, and the atmosphere becomes completely awkward and heavy. The president apologizes for her brother, and the maid calms her down, telling her to act cool. With that, the food arrives, and a bowl of hot ramen is placed on everyone's table. The young woman stares at the food, and the guy asks why she's having such a strange reaction. He asks if it's her first time eating ramen, and she says she's only seen it on television. The butler yells that the question was very rude, but the maid thinks she eats ramen all the time. Not caring about the argument, the black-haired young woman tries the hot noodles. With a smile, the protagonist asks if the food is good and looks at her, waiting for the answer. With a blushing face, the girl says the food is very tasty and continues to eat. He's very happy that she liked it, and the young woman enjoys every moment of that meal. The guy offers to pay for everything, and the butler says he'll eat the rest for her. After lunch, the group of friends goes to an arcade to have some fun. At the claw machine, the claw fails to grab the bear, and the president gets very sad. She complains that she almost got it, and the maid offers to get the bear for her. Meanwhile, the 2 guys are playing a fighting game, and one of them seems to be winning. The vice president celebrates his victory, and the protagonist is annoyed with the loss. Our big guy thinks the butler is making fun of him and promises he'll get him back. With a smile, the man with glasses thinks the guy is an idiot and that he'll make him pay. The protagonist says he still has tokens and challenges him to another fighting match. In the new match, the butler's character lands a kick on the other and starts his combo with a sequence of hits. The protagonist's character is thrown across the screen. With no chance to defend himself, the guy loses the match and is shocked by the bad defeat. He can't believe he lost again, and his rival starts making fun of his lack of skill. Suddenly, the man with glasses gets serious and looks at the young man with a challenging gaze. He calls the protagonist by his name, and the guy turns around, very surprised by his change in demeanor. The butler points to a machine and says they're going to settle things there. He says that real men settle things physically, not with little fighting games. With a confident smile, the man in the suit starts to unbutton his dress shirt. He reveals a super muscular and defined body, leaving the protagonist shocked at the sight. The guy's jaw drops as he wonders how his rival hid all those muscles. The 2 girls get embarrassed, and the maid complains about her idiot brother's attitude. The butler says the guy accepted the challenge, but the young man denies it, saying he never agreed. He then asks if the guy was eager to see his muscles up close. With a taunting smile, the rival says he's disappointed with his classmate's attitude. With an air of superiority, he calls him a coward for running from a challenge like the one he made. He then tells the guy to pay close attention to what's about to happen. With that, the man in the suit stretches in front of the punching machine, looking very confident. With a battle cry, he prepares to land the strongest punch of his life on the target. Just then, the rival's fist hits the machine with impressive force and speed. The machine shows a score of 960 points, and the girls celebrate the new record. With a smile, he calls him over and says, now it's his friend's turn to show his full strength. The guy tries to get away, but the president says she's curious to see his real strength. Under pressure from his friends, the guy cries but agrees to try to break the rival's record. With no choice, the young man gets ready and wonders how things got to this point. He thinks the score doesn't matter and that the real problem is something else entirely. The problem is that his body is like a gagged character's, with overly exaggerated muscles. With a dark aura, he thinks that if he punches with full force, he'll destroy the machine for good. With no other option, he decides he's going all out and can't hold back anymore in that place. With a very quick movement, he throws his fist with all his strength against the punching machine. The punch shines brightly and gets ready to hit the target with precision and a lot of force. The rival is very surprised by what happened and stares at the protagonist, not understanding the scene. the punch hit the machine's iron frame instead of the punching bag and dented it. The machine's score doesn't register anything and shows 0, leaving everyone very confused by the error. The maid complains that he missed the target and that he needs to train his aim more. Relieved, he thinks that at least he didn't break the record and that he'll pretend he missed. Suddenly, he notices something strange with the machine and is speechless at what he sees. The machine's punching bag comes loose and falls to the floor with a dull, heavy thud. With that, the pad lies on the floor, and a very awkward silence fills the place. The butler stands there looking at the broken machine, not knowing what to say to his friend. With a serious look, the man in dark glasses adjusts the accessory on his face in silence. He then declares that today's match has ended in a draw for the two guys. The rival says he'll win next time, but the guy is just relieved the scene is over. Things got a little noisy, so they decide to change locations and take a walk. To celebrate, he suggests they all take some pictures together as a memento of the day. Excited, the girls agree with the idea and think it will be a lot of fun to take pictures. With that, the guy calls everyone into the photo booth to start the session. The first photo shows everyone smiling and making fun poses for the camera. In another photo, the butler is playfully choking his sister for a pose for the camera. They use bunny ears and other funny accessories for the group's next photo. With colorful and differently shaped sunglasses, they pose for the camera together. A montage shows all the fun photos the group took in the photo booth. The president says the photos turned out great, and the maid agrees excitedly. The final photo shows the group having fun and smiling together like happy, good friends. With a smile, the young woman says that was a lot of fun and looks at the photos fondly. He then suggests they end the day with a lively and loud karaoke session. With that, everyone agrees and follows the guy to the big city's karaoke building. The butler starts singing with a lot of passion and excitement on the karaoke stage for everyone. The black-haired girl gets on stage and sings elegantly for all her friends. With her eyes closed, the young woman enjoys the music and sings with her heart and soul. The guys give her a thumbs up and cheer her on while she sings her favorite song of the moment. Right after, the two of them sing a duet together and smile at each other on the karaoke stage. With a radiant smile, the young woman enjoys the special moment with her school friend. The guy also seems to be having a lot of fun and sings with a happy smile on his face. At night, the guy says goodbye and asks everyone to get home completely safe. In the car, the president thanks him and says she had a lot of fun during the whole day with them. The two assistants are exhausted and shocked by the hectic day they had together. The young woman asks what happened, and they suddenly apologize to their boss in the car. They explain that they had so much fun they forgot to leave the place earlier. The black-haired girl stares at the two of them in silence and without any facial expression. With a gentle smile, she doesn't seem to mind the two friends' small mistake. She says it's okay and that she had much more fun than she expected on the date. The young woman remembers all the fun moments she spent with her dear friend. She remembers when they talked while shopping for the kimono together. Inside the car, the young woman looks at the photos and says everything made her truly happy. The black-haired girl remembers when she was a child and played with her two assistants. She thanks the two of them for always being by her side all those years. With a grateful smile, the young woman bows, and the two are moved by the scene. Moved, the two assistants cry upon hearing their boss's kind words. They hug her and say they will serve her for their entire lives, no matter what happens. With a smile, the young woman asks if they will help her properly next time. With the car at high speed, the assistants promise they will make the date a success. The scene changes to a man drawing in his studio with great concentration on his work. The man is the father of the protagonist's blonde friend, and he works as a famous mangaka. Sitting at his desk, he draws his new manga with skill and a lot of talent. His blonde daughter enters the room and calls to him excitedly with a smile on her face. The young woman asks if he remembers that a friend of hers is visiting him the next day. With a smile, the man says he remembers and is looking forward to meeting the guy. He says he's curious to meet the boy his daughter talks so much about lately. The next day of Golden Week, the protagonist goes to his blonde friend's house. Nervous and breaking into a cold sweat, the guy prepares to meet his idol from the manga world. The mangaka greets him with a smile and says he looks like a shounen manga hero. The young man is speechless as he faces the creator of his favorite work of all time. In his mind, he calls him the god of manga and reveres him with admiration and respect. The man invites him in and says his wife has prepared a special meal. The girl's mother greets them and calls them to eat before the food gets cold on the table. With a table full of food, the protagonist is shocked by the banquet. Everyone sits down to eat together, and the guy thanks them for the wonderful meal. The mangaka comments that his daughter hasn't stopped talking about the guy lately, and he blushes. He says he wanted to meet him because it's the first time his daughter has been so close to a boy. The guy gets nervous and tries to clarify that he and his friend are nothing serious. He says they are just friends, and his classmate complains that he shouldn't say that at the table. He apologizes, and the young woman's father laughs at the situation while the mother defends the guest. In his thoughts, the guy starts to imagine what it would be like to have a daughter like his friend. With a blushing face, he thinks he would see all the guys who approached her as wolves. The mother complains to her husband and asks him to stop saying strange things in front of the guy. The young woman looks at her friend and asks if he's suddenly okay and stares at him. He says he's fine while the girl's father looks at him with a mysterious gaze. The young woman's parents comment on how their daughter has grown and is already leaving the nest. With a smile, the man remembers thinking his daughter would be a child forever. A memory shows the young woman as a little girl running happily towards her father. She says she's going to marry him when she grows up, and the man is moved by the scene. With tears in his eyes, the mangaka gets emotional remembering his daughter's promise. The wife laughs at her husband's reaction, and he gets embarrassed by the scene in front of everyone. The man then reveals that he heard the guy is a big fan of his work and his creations. He invites him to see his studio, and the young man accepts the invitation, all excited and happy. In a hallway of the house, the guy and the blonde girl walk towards the mangaka's studio. The young man is very happy because he's going to see the studio and get an autograph from his idol. He says his friend's father is the artist he respects most in the world of manga. The blonde-haired girl opens her bedroom door and invites him to come inside. The guy is shocked to see that his friend's room looks like a manga library. She asks him to wait while she gets some tea, and the young man starts looking at the shelves. Before leaving, she warns him not to touch anything, or she'll get very mad at him. Alone in the room, he thinks it's his first time in a girl's room and feels strange. To pass the time, he decides to play a game on his phone while waiting for his friend. Suddenly, the young woman's mother enters the room, and the guy is startled by the unexpected visit. He calls her ma'am, and the woman asks him to call her Maria to make it easier. Awkwardly, he asks what she's doing there, and the woman says she came to show him her daughter's past. With a smile, she shows a photo album of the young woman to her daughter's friend. She shows pictures of her daughter as a baby, and the guy is curious to see the rest of the album. She finds a photo of her daughter at an anime event, and the guy is surprised by the scene. The woman reveals she used to be a cosplayer, and the young man thinks she has no shame. With a smile, the woman says she found her daughter's true dark past. The photo shows the young woman in a gothic cosplay, and the guy is shocked by the image. The blonde-haired girl enters the room and yells at her mother when she sees the scene in the album. She asks if her mother showed the photo to her friend, and the woman confirms with a smile. With an awkward smile, the guy thinks his friend is very strange and weird. She tries to explain, saying she doesn't cosplay anymore and that it was a mistake from the past. The mother says goodbye and leaves the room, leaving the two young people alone and embarrassed. With a heavy atmosphere in the air, The blonde-haired girl kneels on the bedroom floor. She asks her friend to keep it a secret, and he agrees, saying he has no one to tell. With tears in her eyes, the young woman is embarrassed by the situation and looks at her friend. He tries to console her, telling her not to be so embarrassed about the cosplay photo. The guy says everyone goes through that phase, but she asks if he's ever done something like that. He reveals that he was also pretty bad in school, and his friend is surprised by the confession. The young man asks if she wants to see a photo, and his classmate agrees, curious about the image. He finds the photo on his phone, and the young woman gets closer to see the image on the screen. The guy shows the photo to his friend, and she is shocked by what she sees on the phone's screen. With wide eyes, the blonde-haired girl stares at the photo, not believing what she sees. The photo shows the guy in an exaggerated pose, and with very flashy rocker clothes. She asks how he got so muscular if he was so skinny and nerdy back in school. He explains that he felt weak and started working out before entering high school. She jokes that if she had met him earlier, she would have seen that version of him in person. Without thinking, the young woman says she likes him much more the way he is now and is surprised. With a red face, she realizes what she said and covers her mouth, embarrassed by the confession. The guy blushes and calls her name, not knowing what to say to his friend all of a sudden. The two fall silent, and a romantic atmosphere starts to build between them in the room. With a racing heart, the young woman looks at her friend, unable to look away from him. The guy also seems to be feeling the same way and looks at her with his face all red. The blonde-haired girl tries to say something, but the words won't come out of her nervous mouth. The guy slowly gets closer to her, and the tension between them grows more intense. She says she sees him only as a good friend, and the guy is surprised by the statement. With a red face, he agrees and says they are just really good friends. The two of them smile awkwardly and try to brush off the strange mood that has formed between them. The guy scratches his head, and silence once again reigns in the blonde-haired friend's room. He calls her name, and the young woman answers without being able to look directly into her friend's eyes. With a smile, he thanks her for inviting him to meet his idol and her father. The young woman says she will treasure that day as a memory for the rest of her life. With a gentle smile, the protagonist agrees with his friend and looks at her fondly. He says he'll come back to visit her, and the blonde-haired girl smiles at the promise. As night falls, the young woman says goodbye to her friend and says he could have stayed a bit longer. He says he has already stayed too long and needs to go home for dinner with his family. He reminds her of the family trip, and she says they are going to Hawaii the next day. He wishes her a good trip, and she jokes that he'll miss her soon. He promises that if anything happens, he will help her, and she asks how he would get to Hawaii. In his mind, the guy imagines he could swim there with his superhuman strength. He says he would buy a plane ticket, and his friend laughs at his sensible and logical answer with a wave. The young woman says goodbye, and he watches her with a smile from a distance. With a smile, he says goodbye, and the two promise to see each other at school after her trip. With a blushing face, the young woman looks at her friend and seems to be falling for him. With a racing heart, she watches him walk away and feels something different for him. Alone on the street, the guy thinks about how things suddenly got serious between them. A memory shows the day the guy found his friend lost at the train station. They eat together on a bench, and she compliments the food his mother prepared for them. Another memory shows the two of them reading together, and she compliments him for being a good person. With a blushing face, the blonde-haired young woman looks at him with admiration and affection in her eyes. On the crowded train, he protects her from the crowd, so she doesn't get hurt on the way. With a red face, she thanks him for his kindness and looks at him with admiration. In another scene, he holds her hand, so they don't get separated in the event's crowd. With a smile, the guy remembers the moments he spent with his friend and is happy about it all. The young woman watches him in silence and seems to be falling more and more in love with her friend. With a smile on her face, the blonde-haired girl looks at her friend with a loving gaze. On the 5th day of Golden Week in Akihabara, things promise to get even more hectic. Alone in the city, the protagonist walks through the bustling streets of Akihabara. He thinks he has already bought all the manga he needed and looks at his phone. Feeling hungry, he decides he'll look for a place to eat before heading home. The guy thinks about going to his favorite ramen restaurant to have lunch by himself. Suddenly, a blue-haired girl runs past, shouting for him to get out of the way. Not understanding what happened, the young man turns and looks at the girl who ran past him. The blue-haired young woman jumps over a wall with agility and continues running through the city. With a leap, she dodges obstacles and continues her desperate escape through the streets. The guy is confused by the scene and tries to understand what's happening on the street. Accidentally, the blue-haired young woman trips and falls on top of the protagonist. With the girl's face in his, the guy is shocked by the unusual situation. With a bleeding nose, the protagonist wonders why this happened to him. He gets up furiously, and the blue-haired girl also seems to be angry. She accuses him of not getting out of the way, and he complains that she was the one who fell on him. A group of men in suits approaches and calls the girl by the name of Sasha. She asks the guy for help, and he is confused by the stranger's sudden request. With no time to explain, she pulls him by the hand, and the two start running together. He calls out to her and says they are running into a dead-end alley in the city. The blue-haired girl leads him to a ramen restaurant, and the two enter the place. The men in suits also enter the restaurant, and the guy gets tense with the chase. Hiding behind the counter, the two of them watch the men looking for them in the place. Scared, the girl huddles behind the guy, and he looks at her, not understanding the situation. She thanks him for his help, and he asks why she was being chased on the street. She introduces herself as Sasha and asks for his name as they sit down to talk. The guy says his name is Kim Yu-sung, and she is surprised that he's not Japanese. He gets annoyed and asks who the men were and why they were after her. The young man tries to leave, but the blue-haired girl stops him and asks him to wait. He says that it's not his problem, but the young woman insists on his desperate help. She then offers money in exchange for his help, and the guy is shocked by the proposal. The girl shows a large amount of money, and he is left speechless by the scene. He accepts the deal and thinks that in the end, everything is solved with money somehow. The young woman agrees and says she can't hide the truth from him anymore after everything. She reveals that her father is an important person in a place called Luxia. The guy is confused by the revelation and looks at her, not understanding what she means. With a serious expression, the blue-haired girl begins to explain the whole situation. She says those men were trying to kidnap her because of her father. The guy recognizes the girl from a famous anime and is shocked by the discovery. He realizes that she is one of the main heroines of the anime and is left speechless. The two leave the restaurant and go to a clothing store to disguise the young woman. With a new outfit, the girl asks if the new look is good for her to disguise herself. He says the clothes are easier to move in, and she hires him as her bodyguard. She says he just needs to protect her until 7 in the evening, and the guy is surprised. He asks if she's not scared, and she says it's easier to lose them in crowded places. The young woman explains that they won't act in front of civilians, and the guy agrees with the plan. The narrative reveals that the girl is Alexandra Ivanovna Romanova, a Russian character. She was supposed to have met the story's protagonist, but ended up meeting the guy instead. He wonders if the story is taking place before her official debut in the anime. The young man doesn't know if he should interfere, but decides to help the blue-haired girl. In his thoughts, he wonders if she's trying to buy him with dirty money. He wanted to say he wouldn't accept, but the amount of money made him change his mind. With a sigh, he accepts the mission, and the girl watches him with a smile on her face. She thinks she's good at reading people, and that the guy seems to be a strong person. The young woman observes the guy's muscles and is impressed by his apparent strength. She believes he will be able to protect her for 6 hours without any problem. Back on the streets, the girl says they need to move so they won't be tracked. Suddenly, the men in suits appear, and the guy is shocked by how fast they are. He asks if they are ex-KGB agents, and she is confused by the strange name. The two start running again, and one of the men gets closer to attack the guy. The man tries to land a punch on the protagonist, but he dodges with agility and speed. With the quick movement, the guy dodges, and the man is surprised by his reaction. The man in the suit glares at the guy with anger and prepares for a quick counter attack. But the protagonist lifts him with ease and prepares to throw him to the ground with force. With one move, the guy throws him to the ground, and the other men are shocked by the scene. The blue-haired girl's jaw drops, and the guy turns to her, surprised. He pushes her to a safe place and tells her to hide while he fights. The guy closes the door to protect her and gets ready to face the other men. He thinks the men are stronger than the street punks he's used to. The group of men in suits advances towards the guy to attack him all at once. But he knows that in romantic comedies, the strongest character always wins in the end. With a powerful punch, the guy hits one of the men and knocks him down with a single blow. In a short time, all the men are on the ground, and the guy prepares for the next one. He thinks that at this level, he can handle all of them without much trouble. With a determined look, the guy faces the next opponents with total confidence. Another man attacks him, but the guy dodges with ease and prepares to counterattack. With a glow in his fist, he prepares to land a powerful blow on the enemy. Suddenly, the men's captain appears and looks at the guy with a very serious gaze. The man wonders who the idiot is that's attacking him out of nowhere and glares at him. The guy realizes the captain is stronger than he thought and stays on alert. He wonders if his romantic comedy buff will work against that man. The blue-haired girl watches the scene worriedly, and the guy continues to stare at the captain. She says that no matter how strong he is, he won't be able to defeat Captain Boris. With a confident look, the young woman believes in the captain's victory and his strength. The guy understands why she was so confident and decides not to underestimate rich girls anymore. With a determined look, he decides he's going to end the fight quickly and gets ready. With a swift movement, the guy advances towards the captain for a surprise attack. The captain is startled by the young man's speed and tries to defend himself from the quick blow. With a powerful punch, the guy hits him squarely, and a dark aura surrounds the fight. He holds the captain's face tightly and looks at him with a challenging smile. The young man prepares for his next move, and the captain is surprised by his strength. With a quick movement, he grabs the captain's arm and prepares for an armbar. With a judo throw, the guy slams the captain to the ground with great force and skill. The young man feels a pain in his shoulder and realizes the captain is tougher than he looks. He wonders what that is and realizes the captain is trying to resist the move. With a punch to the stomach, the captain tries to break free, and the guy accidentally calls him Dad. With a smile, the man in the suit gets up and faces the guy with a challenging look. He prepares to attack, but the guy stops him with a quick and precise move. With a lead sweep, the young man takes him down again and immobilizes him on the street floor. The captain complains about the joint lock, and the guy smiles with the impending victory. In pain, the man yells that his hip joint is hurting a lot from the move. He asks if the guy is trying to cripple him, and the young man throws him far away with force. The captain falls to the ground defeated, and the guy stands up victorious from the intense fight. The blue-haired girl is shocked to see Captain Boris defeated so easily. The other men are also surprised and look at the guy with fear and admiration. Captain Boris is on the ground out cold, and the guy looks at him with a scornful gaze. He complains that joint injuries are serious and that he won't be able to go to the gym. The blue-haired girl can't believe he really defeated Captain Boris all by himself. In her thoughts, she wonders how someone can be so strong and powerful. The scene changes to a dark, abandoned warehouse somewhere in the big city. A blue-haired man answers the phone and seems to be receiving news about the mission. He confirms his identity and hears that Captain Boris Zarov has been defeated in combat. The man doesn't believe the news and says it's impossible for anyone in Japan to beat the captain. The informant describes the guy, and the blue-haired man starts to suspect something. He wonders if this guy is the famous Black Yasha, a legend of the criminal underworld. With a serious look, he repeats the name and starts to believe in the possibility of his return. On a computer, a message pops up asking if the Black Yasha has really returned. The reply says that rumors are spreading all over Tokyo about what happened. With a click of the mouse, someone starts to research more about the matter on the internet. A black-haired woman reads the messages and wonders if the Black Yasha is really that strong. With a serious look, she thinks that the newbies know nothing about the legendary fighter. She remembers the God of Fist tournament of 1999 and a certain fighter. The God of Fist is a blue-haired man with a beard who exudes power and confidence. That's when Kotaro, a mysterious ninja, appeared out of nowhere for the fighting tournament. He only fought once, but managed to reach the finals and became a legend. With a pensive look, the woman stares at the computer and reflects on the legend of the fighter. She wonders if it's true that the legendary Kotaro has really reappeared out of nowhere. With her hands on the desk, the woman gets up and prepares to leave her office. She puts on her jacket and seems determined to investigate the case personally. With her hand on the doorknob, she prepares to open the door and go out into the street. The black-haired woman leaves her building and looks at the city with a serious expression. She thinks about her father and seems to have a mysterious connection with the legendary fighter. The scene changes to a maid cafe, where the employees welcome the customers. The guy is embarrassed by the scene, and the blue-haired girl watches him in silence. He complains that she took him to a maid cafe, and she says it's a must-do in Japan. One of the maids leads them to a table and calls the master with a smile on her face. He complains about being in an otaku den, and she says they are safe for now. With a strange feeling, the guy looks at the menu and feels uncomfortable in the place. He asks why he can't show his face, and she says it's because of an EMP. She explains that the combat squad turns off all devices before an operation. The young woman reveals that they work for the Easter Ed Company, a weapons manufacturer. With a smile, she reminds him that she's the daughter of someone important and calls him master. A maid with cat ears approaches and introduces herself as the star of the cafe. The blue-haired girl gets excited, and the guy thanks her for the food, embarrassed. The maid says they need to do a ritual before eating, and the guy gets tense. She asks them to repeat what she's going to say, and the young man feels that something bad is about to happen. With her hands in a heart shape, the maid prepares for the cafe's food ritual. With a cute pose, she says a few words, and the guy is horrified by the scene. He refuses to do the ritual, and the maid says it's a mandatory policy of the coffee. With a red face, the guy has no choice and prepares for the embarrassing ritual. With his hands in a heart shape, he repeats the maid's words, completely embarrassed. The blue-haired girl laughs at the scene, and the maid finally lets them eat in peace. Exhausted, he eats the food and admits that the taste is very good despite the embarrassment. The maid returns and asks if their meal was to their liking with a smile on her face. She says that whoever finishes last will have a penalty, and the guy gets scared. With a smile, the maid shows a cat ear headband and he panics. The penalty is to wear the ears and end all sentences with a cat's meow. He asks if there's another option, and the blue-haired girl says he just has to win. Determined not to lose, the guy faces the blue-haired girl with a challenging look. The two start playing cards, and the competition gets intense between them at the table. In the end, the guy loses and is forced to wear the cat ear headband as a penalty. Embarrassed, he refuses to speak, and the blue-haired girl encourages him to just meow already. Furious, he accepts another round, and the blue-haired girl laughs at his face. She makes fun of him, saying the ears don't suit him, and he promises to win next time. At the end of the day, the maid says goodbye, and the guy leaves the cafe exhausted and defeated. The blue-haired girl celebrates her victory, and the guy complains that he didn't win a single time. She says it's almost 5 in the afternoon, and asks if he doesn't want to see the sights. The two walk together down the street, and an awkward silence settles between them. Suddenly, the blue Haired girl says she needs to confess something to the guy. She reveals that the men he fought earlier were actually her bodyguards. With a sad look, the young woman apologizes for lying and explains the whole situation. She says he can leave and that she will call her guards to go back to the hotel. A helicopter approaches, and the blue-haired girl thanks the guy for his help. With a smile, she says goodbye and prepares to leave in her father's helicopter. Suddenly, the girl's father appears in the helicopter and calls out to her with a smile on his face. The guy is shocked to see the blue-haired man with a beard in the young woman's helicopter. With a hand on the table, someone prepares to jump from the helicopter to the street. A man jumps from the helicopter and lands in front of the two young people with a dull thud. The girl's father says she put on quite a show and that they didn't have to look far. He glares at the guy and asks who the man is who dares to get close to his daughter. Sasha asks how he found them, and the man completely ignores her on the street. He says it's a personal matter between him and his daughter and glares at the guy angrily. The girl's father says that this is a personal matter and glares at the guy angrily. Sasha tries to defend her friend, saying it was her fault for running away from the hotel. The guy realizes that the blue-haired man is the girl's father and is surprised. He wonders why a guy from Luxia is speaking Japanese with his daughter. The man says he heard that the Black Yasha has resurfaced in Tokyo and glares at the guy. He asks if his daughter's Japanese bodyguard has anything to do with the legendary fighter. The girl's father remembers that 10 years ago, the legendary Black Yasha disappeared without a trace. With a serious look, he calls him Fumakotaro, and the guy is confused by the name. Pointing a finger at the young man, he challenges him to a fight right there on the street. He yells that they are going to finish the fight they started 18 years ago once and for all. Not understanding, the guy introduces himself, and the blue-haired man looks at him, confused by the scene. He asks if the young man knows Fumakotaro, and the guy immediately denies it and says no. With an awkward silence, the girl's father seems to reconsider his accusation. He says he will spare him from being disinherited for now, and looks at him with a serious gaze. The guy thinks there has been a mistake, and that he has nothing to do with Fumakotaro. Suddenly, the man asks how he managed to defeat his captain, Boris, on the street. He refers to the big man who fought him earlier, and the guy apologizes. The young man says he thought he was a kidnapper, and that's why he didn't go easy on him in the fight. Taking a step forward, the girl's father prepares to attack the guy angrily. With a powerful punch, the blue-haired man advances towards the protagonist. The guy is surprised by the speed and force of the attack and tries to defend himself. With a muscular arm, the girl's father shows his strength and looks at him with a smile. Sasha shouts her friend's name, worried about the fight that is about to happen. With a punch to the guy's backpack, the man destroys the manga he had bought. The young man is shocked to see his new manga completely destroyed by the blow. The girl's father says it's interesting and asks the guy to show his full strength. Furious about the destruction of his manga, the protagonist glares at the man with rage. With tears in his eyes, he yells that he will never forgive him for destroying his manga. The two glare at each other and prepare for a serious and emotional fight on the street. With a powerful punch, the guy attacks the girl's father, and a purple aura surrounds them. With a quick movement, the young man hits him squarely, and the blue-haired man goes flying. The girl's father prepares to counterattack, and the two exchange intense blows. With a powerful kick, the man hits the guy, but he manages to defend himself from the blow. With his feet on the ground, the protagonist recovers and faces his opponent with determination. The girl's father is impressed with the young man's strength and praises his skill. He asks why the guy is doing this out of the blue and looks at him with curiosity. The man says he is an exceptional genius, and the guy is confused by the compliment. He says that an untrained student defeating his right-hand man is something impressive. With a punch in the air, the girl's father says that should be impossible to happen. He calls him a prodigy and says he might be a talent that comes once every 100 years. With a bruised face, the guy looks at the man and wonders what he wants with him. With his fist glowing, the girl's father prepares to make a proposal to the young man. He invites him to work for him and looks at him with a confident smile on his face. The man promises he will help him develop all his talent if he accepts. The guy realizes that the world of scramble love is not a common romantic comedy. He understands that the story has become a battle webtoon and is shocked by the discovery. The man's proposal seems to have come straight out of a shounen battle manga. At first, the story seemed like a normal romantic comedy, but things have changed. The reason he was brought into that world and trained so hard was to fight. The reason he always gets involved in fights is because of the genre shift. Everything leads to a single conclusion about the true purpose of that love story. The series changed direction and became a battle manga instead of a romantic comedy. He is sure of this because the work's publisher is Jamks, a magazine for fighting manga. In a magazine like Jamks, a pure romantic comedy would be a losing battle. The author must have given in to pressure and changed the genre to a battle manga. If that really happened, the guy realizes his life is in constant danger. He will continue to be surrounded by dangerous monsters, like that strong man. The girl's father asks what he thinks of the proposal and offers him many benefits. He promises to pay his college tuition, a house, a car, and anything else he wants. With clenched fists, the guy prepares to give his answer to the blue-haired man. With a confident smile, the guy prepares to accept the blue-haired man's offer. The girl's father is surprised by the young man's unexpected answer and looks at him in silence. With a determined look, the guy says that if the series is a battle won, the old man is going to lose. He believes the girl's father is destined to lose to the protagonist one day. The young man decides that staying close to the protagonist is the best chance of surviving in the story. The blue-haired man looks at him and says that settles it then, once and for all. With a powerful punch, he yells for the guy to be taken out and rushes towards him in anger. The young man is startled by the aggression and wonders why the man is so extreme. The girl's father hits him with a punch to the stomach, and the guy feels the pain of the blow. With a bruised face, he realizes the man is really trying to hurt him. He wanted to go easy on him for being Sasha's father, but the man is not playing around. With a watchful eye, the guy notices an opening in his opponent's guard and gets ready. With a quick blow, he hits him in the head, and the blue-haired man is surprised. The two glare at each other, and the fight becomes increasingly intense and balanced between them. With the sunset in the background, the battle between the two men continues without a winner. The girl's father is bruised, but still looks at the guy with a challenging gaze. The young man realizes the situation has gotten serious and prepares for the next move. With a swift movement, the blue-haired man advances towards the guy again. He hits him in the face with the palm of his hand, and the guy feels the impact of the strong blow. With a piece of advice, he tells the young man to pay attention to his next move. He explains that when you punch someone, you have to have the intention to finish them. With a powerful punch, he demonstrates his technique, and the guy watches him attentively. He holds the young man's face and looks at him with a serious and determined gaze. With a glint in their eyes, the fight between the two men promises to become even more epic.